right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Grafton Select Board meeting for April 12, 2022. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. First order of business, please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just forgot to take my hat off. No, I got bad hat head, so the hat's staying on. All right. Thank you, everyone. We got a full house here tonight. So first up is we have a music license, one-day license for parent-teacher group. And I believe we have Jocelyn here. Good evening, Jocelyn. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you guys?
Good. Welcome back.
Oh, thanks. Happy to be back.
All right. So you're applying for music license for the PTG Annual Spring Fling to be held at the Grafton Public Library on April 29th. Does anyone from the board have any questions for Jocelyn? Jocelyn, do you want to give another shout out about what this is all about for the public to hear?
Yeah, sure. So the North Grafton Schools Parent Teacher Group is putting on their annual Spring Fling at the library from 7 to 10 on Friday, April 29th. I have over 40 auction and raffle items. We're going to have hopefully live music after today, but a beer and wine cash bar and some food. And we're just excited to be able to host it again. So please come and support us and join. It is a Grafton community event, so you can just be from around town.
All right. Thanks, Jocelyn. Anyone have any questions? All right. I can entertain a motion.
I move the board vote to approve a one-day music license for the PTG Annual Spring Fling event to be held on April 29th.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right. I do apologize. I skipped over one item here on our agenda. I don't have any announcements tonight, but does anyone here from the public wish to make a public statement or a comment? Sure. If you want to come up, have a seat, and just state your name. Address for me, please.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. How you doing?
I'm Chris Thornton. I live at 15 Maplewood Drive. I just have a quick statement to read. All right, so these are just thoughts to the select board. I'm here today because we are asking for your help to mitigate the situation with 244 Worcester Street. I'm not sure what the select board can do, but whatever's in your power, we're asking for you to do what you can to do to help us over in that neighborhood. We know that you can at least restrict some truck traffic on the street and restrict the use of Jake brakes. We feel that the planning board, although, they did their job and they worked hard, and I understand the gravity of their situation, did not necessarily have the interest of all the town members when they made their decision. They did not listen to some of our requests, especially on hours of operation. They were clearly overwhelmed by the attorney representing the applicant. Where was our town attorney, during that stuff? I mean, you go into any conversation with anyone and they have an attorney, you should probably have one too. We put our trust in the elected officials and we're utterly disappointed in the way the decision was made. Members of the group here tonight have said that we've heard that they were happy with the way the process was going, kind of happy for who and how was it going. The planning board has said, and they understood the gravity of their decision. This is the biggest project in the town since the original Wyman Gordon project over 75 years ago. Yet one member was too tired to comprehend what was being discussed. Another one didn't even know why you would drive down Deer Gnome Street. Yet another complimented the developer and the attorney on his closing statements and saying it was really impressive. After the meeting, they were all laughing and joking about how late it was and how 23 people on the Zoom had probably fallen asleep. I can assure you, I was in Virginia. I was not asleep. And how is this working in our best interest? And how is this acceptable from officials? We presented multiple studies and scores of information showing how bad noise pollution, light, emissions, traffic of distribution centers. Multiple studies and articles that suggested at least a 2,000-foot setback from neighborhoods. This is 200 feet from my front door. Many of us have lived in town for decades. Some of us grew up here. We have chosen to raise our children here. We're your neighbors, your kids' coaches, den mothers, teachers. We own small businesses in town, and we are friends. And yes, also we are voters. We are asking again for you to help in this situation in whatever way you can, and it is the power to mitigate any of the damage due to this proposal. So please do so. Thank you.
Mr. Thornton, thank you very much. Is it possible we can get a copy of that and put that into the meeting minutes?
Absolutely.
Thank you. One thing I do want to comment on, at our last meeting, we did discuss.
That would be fun.
We did discuss 244 Worcester Street, and we did discuss that we will be looking into further action in addressing some of the concerns that are within the select board's purview. So stay tuned, please.
Thank you very much. I
Appreciate your advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Anyone else from the public would like to come up, make a public comment tonight? Yes, sir. If you want to come on up and have a
The question I have,
Sir, I'm so sorry. Would you please come up, have a seat, state your name, address, and you can give us a question, but we're here for public comment, not a back
Okay.
and forth.
pardon me?
We're here for public comment right now, sir. We're just only taking public comment.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to commend the board for making the pledge of allegiance to the flag. I've attended many meetings in my business, and every meeting started with pledge of allegiance. So I think I have to commend you for that. I'm here tonight to ask questions about the Upton project on Upton Road. And I don't know whether I should voice my comments before or after the developer makes his presentation.
Sir, why don't we wait until the gentleman makes his presentation, addresses some of the questions that the board had from its previous meeting, and I'll ask the board if it wants to entertain taking in any public comment at that time. Is that okay with you?
Well, it's okay with me as long as I get to make some comments then.
I'll have the board consider it when we come up with a time for that agenda item.
Okay,
Okay?
so if you don't allow that time, this is the only time I can make a comment.
That's not true, sir.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll
That's
wait.
not true.
I'll be patient.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public would like to make a public comment at this time? If you could just state your name and address, please, sir.
I will. I'm Reverend Daniel Gregoire. I'm at 189 Worcester Street in North Grafton. And I know I'm not going to say anything that you haven't heard already, but I just feel so strongly against this project on Worcester Street. Last night, I had to rush my wife to the hospital because of emotional distress caused by this, and it's not even done yet. This project to me is it's demonic. I feel like someone woke up and said, how can I make people of modest means more miserable? Let me put this massive institution on their street so they can suffer more. And I so angry by this. And I hope that this board will do all that it can to prevent this from happening. This is not what our town needs. We have so many industrial institutions already here. We don't need any more on the street. So just thank you for listening to me, and I hope that you'll take the health and well-being of the people who live on Worcester Street in mind as you address this travesty. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend.
Hope your wife's okay.
Anybody else from the public would like to make a public comment at this time? Anybody online attending the meeting would like to make a public comment can use the raise hand function. Not seeing any. Okay. We move on, please. Next up, we already covered the music license. Traffic Safety Committee recommendations. I believe Chief Crapo is here to discuss some of the recommendations.
We're doing
No, we're skipping over that tonight. There's
Oh, we
been
are?
an amended agenda. I'm sorry.
Oh, God damn it. Okay. All right.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chief.
Nice to be back in person.
Indeed.
You believe that, right?
It's really us up here, I promise.
It's always a pleasure having you here, Norm.
Virtual, of course. Okay, the Traffic Safety Committee met on March 16th to discuss several petitions that were put forward. After review and discussion of all the requests, the Traffic Safety Committee is forwarding the following recommendations to the Select Board for consideration. Do you want them one by one and vote, or you can vote on them all or if you vote at all, how,
How does the board want to do this?
whatever's good for you.
For them all.
We can vote them all in one,
and then
and we can hear them all, and we can take a vote for all of them.
Okay.
If there's any objections, someone say please hold.
Or questions, feel free to stop me.
Thanks.
Number one was request from Nelson Park Library trustees to prohibit parking on both sides of Prentice Street between Shrewsbury Street and Creeper Hill Road. The situation was discussed, and a motion was made and passed to prohibit parking and place no parking signs on both sides of Prentice Street between Shrewsbury Street and Creeper Hill Road. Main reason for this, there's quite a few people using that area and using the grassy area for parking, and they felt it's gonna be, used even more once the apartment complex, is completed at that location. So, alright. The second request was from Jonathan Nickerson to reduce speed limits, from 30 to 20 miles per hour in the Airport Road neighborhood. A motion was made and passed to place cautionary slow children at play and thickly settled 20-mile-per-hour signs in the Airport Road neighborhood, including Hingham Road, at the discretion of DPW. Third item was a request from Bill Fairbanks to post a hidden street or similar sign on Worcester Street and Donahue Lane. We recognize that MassDOT controls that area there. So after discussion that included poor sight lines, increased speeding, traffic, and the removal of the caution light at Hollywood Drive that was removed during some of the construction that was there, a motion was made and passed to request MassDOT to post a hidden drive or similar sign on Route 122 northbound approaching Donahue Lane. Okay, request from Malcolm Reed to post speed limit signs or other devices on Hawthorne Street. We had a discussion about vehicles that are coming in to Hawthorne at a high rate of speed, at least too high for that area, if you're familiar with the road makeup there. Motion was made and passed to place slow children at play signs on Hawthorne Street at the discretion of DPW. And item 5 was a request from Josh Bedarian for traffic from the left has a stop sign or similar at Upton Street, Route 140 and South Street. There was a lot of discussion there. If you're familiar, there are issues. Vehicles that are turning left, they stop sometimes to thinking that they don't have the right of way from vehicles coming from South Street. It is, especially to out-of-towners, I would say it's kind of confusing at that location. So after lengthy discussion, that included significant changes to the intersection, including new construction, additional parking, the projected construction at the location. Motion was made and passed to commission a traffic study and follow-up of the intersection of South Street and Route 140. A lot of that construction is mostly the library and the way things were configured there after the change. And that's it.
Chief, I have one question I would like to start off. I'm looking at the recommendation for the 30 to 20 mile an hour in the Airport Road neighborhood. You mentioned including Hingham Road. Is Gearsholm Road also to be included, as well as Bedford Drive and so on and so forth?
But anything up in that area would get a sign.
Okay,
Gershom, you're talking about, that's off of...
that's off of Falmouth Drive.
No.
No. Gershom is,
Near
off of
Westboro.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Gloucester's Road.
West-
I'm sorry.
yeah.
My eyes are old, so that's on me. Sorry for all those listening. It's Gloucester Road.
yeah, that's why I do number 40 font on here, so I don't have to wear my glasses.
I know. I loved it because as I'm reading it, I could stand like this and read it. But I'm trying to read Google Maps at a type 10 font, and yeah, I do have glasses at home and I should wear them. But Gloucester Road, so everything in that neighborhood
yes.
is going to be included, as well as the road that goes by Airport Park, which is Bedford as well.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's been our policy now, because in order to put 30-mile-an-hour signs or slower, we have to have a full traffic study, and that was explained to the petitioners at this meeting and in past meetings too. So we think the easiest way would be to put up these cautionary signs with the either slow children or thickly settled with the little rider at the bottom. It says 20 miles per hour. And it's, for the most part, it works. So,
Anyone else have any questions? No? Okay. Thanks, Chief. All right, if there isn't any questions, I could take a motion.
I move the board vote to approve the recommendations of the Traffic Safety Committee as noted on the recommendation letter dated March 29th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Clear motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
do you want to maybe take Chief Crapo out of order under Town Administrator?
I never want to take the chief of police out of order.
You are. You're always out of order.
Okay. Chief, do you want to take the hot seat one more time for me, please? With the board's permission, we would like to, what was it?
4A.
Under 4A, appointments, town administrator, chief of police contract renewal. Any objections?
Nope.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Chief.
Okay. So it's time to renegotiate the chief's contract. The chief and I met and we're able to get that done, I think, pretty quickly. He's a real bear to negotiate with, but, you know, so am I sometimes. No, so we settled on a 3-year contract with some increases in salary, mainly a 2, 2, and 2 over the next 3 years. We've cleaned up some statute references and reinstated the longevity that was removed from the contract some years back. We also removed the line that talked about cell phone usage, which seemed incongruent with the rest of the contract. And that was pretty much it.
Any questions?
Pretty straightforward.
I have one question. Can you just elaborate a little bit on the longevity?
Sure. So the chief being here for 19 years,
be 18 years.
18 years, should have taken that extra year.
Yeah.
So department heads, contracted department heads specifically had longevity in their contract previously. That was removed at some point, probably in a time of tight finances. But I saw no reason not to reinstate it. It's like $1,500 a year.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the board?
Got it.
So,
Right.
yeah, just bringing the contract in line with the residency requirements of the fire chief.
Yep.
We don't have any residency requirements of the fire chief right now, so I'm assuming that's gonna get amended later, or?
Nope. So you don't have any requirements for the fire chief. So we removed it from the.
Oh,
police
okay.
chief.
Okay,
I think.
that's fine.
Good question. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, just quickly, so the compensation is in line with the comp and class plan that you did?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I think that's,
Well, it's closer to.
okay,
Okay.
got it. I think that's an important, point to make, is that
Yep.
we did a full study on, all of the staff, salary and compensation across the town. And this year, we're sort of making people whole, where we were not paying, sort of market rate,
Right.
competitive with the region, so,
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think that the chief is at a disadvantage to a certain degree because he has longevity, which, if you look at what's happening in the market and say in the last 4 or 5 years, the new hires greatly outpace the people that have longevity. I mean, by leaps and bounds. So, this is us getting closer to where someone might be if the chief were to go be the chief of Westboro tomorrow. He would probably, Westboro's a bad option, but you know what I mean.
Warwick, Rhode
Everybody
Island.
makes more money in Westboro. Yeah. So, but the job market favors the new chiefs as opposed to chiefs that have been, in their towns with some longevity. So, we're closer than we have been. But I don't know that we fulfilled every desire to match. But I don't know how else to put that politically.
Any other questions? No? Chief, do you have anything you want to say?
No, just, what Evan, we talked about too, and, being in line is great, and I have no desire to look elsewhere. I never have.
Good.
And, I don't like to move around a lot. I'm a creature of habit. That's basically it. Hopefully we're doing a good job and, we're appreciated somehow, some way, and just want to keep doing what we're doing and build better. Actually, we've got some programs coming up. If you have a second, I can really touch on them. If you
Yeah, this is a good chance.
Go for it.
Yep.
Yep. Spoke with EOPS today, and we've got the go-ahead for our body-worn camera program, so we're going to get that going. I'm hoping to be online sometime in July. When we get that, we got a grant for a little over $40,000, so it won't cost the town anything. Now it's just implementing, and we've spoken with the union and negotiated with the union for a memorandum of agreement, which was required to get the grant. So that worked out well. We're also in the process of working with Department of Mental Health to work with advocates, who is basically they provide co-response with police officers. So when this grant is settled, and I want to thank Lieutenant Minotti for doing that, we will have at least 2 days a week, if not more, a clinician working with the police officers, responding to calls for mental health issues and overdose issues. So we get grant money for that. We're going to be hiring. We actually get to pick a clinician. We'll be putting out a notice and to hire somebody, so we get to pick, and the officers that are going to be working with this clinician will actually do the interviews, so that they're going to be working with them in the cruises, so they'll be able to find somebody that fits, with them, and hopefully that'll be a big help in the future. This will also, not only are we working with advocates to do co-response, but we're also working with family continuity, and they have an office in Northbridge, and hopping on a grant with them to do follow-up afterwards. So we'll be doing co-response at the time of any crisis, and then we'll be doing follow-up with these individuals who need support. And before the grants even came out, I have two officers, Officer H.U. and Officer Spellman, who have been trained in crisis intervention, and they've been doing the SIMS program, which is Critical Incident Management, working with the DA's office. So after an incident of an overdose or mental health issue, they've been going to houses to speak with these individuals, and if they want help, we'll get them the help they need. It's worked so far. They're not clinicians, they're not MSWs or whatever, but what they've been able to do is bring people, talk to people, offer the services, provide what these victims didn't know was available, and it's working. So when we do have the co-response built up, and we do have the follow-up built up afterwards, we'll be in good shape, and hopefully that'll reduce our calls for well-being checks and mental health issues, where we have to do Section 12, Section 35s and whatnot, because it does take up a lot of time. It takes up the ambulance time, and hopefully we can help these people rather than just going back to the house over and over and over again, because for some people that's what happens, and we need to do more, and we're trying to do that. So what's that?
That's great, Summer. Thanks for sharing that, Chief.
Yeah.
Anyone have any questions? Chief? That was quite a bit. Thank you for sharing that. And I hope people at home heard that too. It's great to see the police department progressing with the sign of the times and addressing the community's needs. And I think these programs, especially with the clinician working with the police officers, I know previous job I worked in up in Lancaster, my organization worked with the local police and helped with de-escalation, and it was extremely beneficial for everybody. So
Absolutely.
That's great to see. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments? All right, I can entertain a motion.
I thought we voted on it already.
Did we vote on the contract already? I don't
No.
think we did.
Oh, okay.
That's why I'm asking for a motion. Maybe you had other
Let's
people.
see.
I did, and I thought that's why he wrapped up. My bad.
You're not gonna be clerk next year, but
I know. I move the board vote to affirm the employment agreement between the town of Grafton and the police chief as submitted by the town administrator, and authorize the chair to sign the agreement.
second.
Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried. Thanks, Chief.
Just want to let you know, thank you very much. This is the eve of my 41st anniversary as a police officer tomorrow.
Oh,
All right.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Coming up,
There's three more.
approach the bench.
Yes.
Just don't touch anything.
Thanks, Chief, so much.
sanitizer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Especially me, because I was with Little League.
Cough longer than I've been alive. Not me.
That's a
Definitely
true measure. That's a true measurement.
definitely longer than
of
William's been alive, too.
dedication. Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good night, Chief. Thank you.
Yeah, I know.
All right. So next up on the agenda tonight, at our conversation last week, we were wanted to invite in select board appointed members of the Community Preservation Commission. So tonight, all of them are here. I have Ken, I have Paul, I have Brooke, and I have Rick. How does the board want to proceed? Do we want them just to sit up here and have just an open discussion with them? Do we want to one at a time? How does the board want to go?
I think an open discussion is my recommendation.
Okay.
I would
Anyone?
do that.
Okay. Do you all want to come up and join us? That would be wonderful. There's some seats over here.
Yeah, you can.
I'll take the chair. Good evening. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate this. Thank you for responding to the invitation last week. Board had some lengthy discussions and has participated, or I should say attended, some recent meetings of the Community Preservation Commission. So tonight, our objective here is to really have a conversation with our appointees, the people that the Select Board appoints to the Community Preservation Commission, about, I think it was very clear, about the past few meetings, some of the communications claims that have been made, in addition to just overall the commentary that I think these two boards have been receiving and hearing from one another. So, at this point, I would like any one of the board members who want to go first. Go ahead, Matt.
So, guys, thanks so much for coming. I think it's important for us to set this discussion up correctly at the beginning, and I think it's important, hopefully, to just kind of set the tone, because it's important for this type of conversation. How I hope it will go is that the select board has some concerns about what we've observed in recent meetings. I'm hoping that we can clearly articulate what those concerns are, that our appointees can acknowledge those concerns, and then we can work together to address those concerns. So that's how I would like to see it go. And I think, I'd prefer that we not go down the road of going way into the past and things that may have happened, previous to really what we're trying to address here, which is just what we've observed recently and some maybe misalignment with what we see our appointees doing on CPC versus what we've observed, I suppose. So it's difficult to kind of express it the right way, but I just want to have an adult conversation and hopefully be able to work together. I think we've done a really good job generally with our desire to have more collaboration and engagement across boards and committees in town. We've had a lot of very productive meetings with a variety of groups. ZBA, the Affordable Housing Trust, School Committee, Finance Committee. They've been very productive meetings and collaborative meetings where we're working together to achieve an end. And so what I hope to see tonight is that we can just recognize those concerns together and work together to address them. So I just wanted to kind of, for me at least, set up. When I asked to put this on the agenda in our last meeting, it went in a slightly different direction than I thought it was gonna. But what I was hoping for tonight is to just have that candid, open conversation to address our concerns. So I'm gonna hand the floor to somebody else.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think we have to highlight what the concerns are.
I think we'll get to that. But anyone would like to begin on their concerns first?
Mr. Chair, I would actually like to take a a slightly different approach. And thank you, Matt, for opening the conversation up that way too. And I 100% agree that I'm optimistic that this will be just a conversation to hopefully clear any sort of misunderstandings that are going on. But as someone who wasn't at the last meeting and was not at the CPC meeting, I did watch all of them and am up to speed on everything. It's clear that CPC also has some concerns as well. So what I would like to do is start with that. Even though we have called you to our meeting, I think, how I see all of this working with boards and committees is that we are one town, we are a partnership, and it's clear that there's some misunderstandings, not only from our end, but from yours. So I just, maybe the discussion starts there. And, what are your concerns? Because I don't know necessarily how to start the conversation without knowing the issue. Like, I know the issues on our side. I don't necessarily know the issues from CPC members.
Well, we're here tonight. We invited them to hear our concerns and what our expectations are, and to have that discussion. So I think it's fair that we share, in my opinion, what our observations are. Does anyone want to go with that first? If not, I'm willing to go first and share just my observations and just go from there. Anybody?
Sure.
All right. So over the past few months, I've seen, I've observed, I should say, Community Preservation Commission's meetings and certain commentary that has been brought up about the board and its actions and the way it goes through its process. And I am gravely concerned that, as we're an independent board as ourselves, that, we have to go through our process and determine if we want to propose an idea, move forward with it. One of the things that has me really concerned is that when we put something on our agenda that may discuss or have a conversation around CPC, the topic, whether it be a bylaw membership change or it may be something of a project or so on and so forth, I've received correspondence from your chair about wanting to attend our meeting right away. And I said to John, this goes back a few months ago, prior to the fall town meeting, I says, let's see if the board even wants to go down the road about proposing any membership change. Let us do that first. If it's a dead issue, I don't want, there's no sense in wasting everyone's time. So the board had its discussion. This was back in September timeframe. And I was really caught off guard that, you felt like, we did not communicate that to you effectively. Unfortunately, I can't communicate the board's wishes until the board actually determines if it wants to wish something or not. So I felt that myself and the board was put under a microscope, that very unreasonable expectations, and it generated into several conversations about, trying to repeat some of the commentary, but to kind of keep it short, was that there was unhappiness, distrust, or so on and so forth. We're proposing ideas. We're talking about how to broaden how we feel we want the town to maybe decide ultimately. How does it want to broaden or address or talk about items on CPC? So I felt that over the course of meetings, and then of course we talked about recently about the Affordable Housing Trust, because we had a meeting with them, very productive meeting if you recall, between the board and the trust, and we said, how can we help you? That's what we asked them. How can the board support Grafton Affordable Housing Trust? Grafton Affordable Housing Trust says, one of the many areas, and one of them they talked about community preservation. They felt that they needed some more inclusion. They needed some more advocacy on that board, or someone to be able to demonstrate or discuss with the board at any given time just the real-time updates of what's going on. So CPC can be aware of, projects going on or ideas. Because part of CPC's pillars was to support Affordable Housing Trust. So we thought, with them, let's propose changing one of the members at large to having the Affordable Housing Trust appoint one of its own members. And the commentary that I heard from your meetings, once we got done having our discussion, was you all attended our meeting because you felt like we were slipping this in inside that we didn't communicate with you, but yet we were going through our process of discussion. And I had to correct one of you at your meeting a few weeks ago, Thursday, on that. So I'm really concerned about how that narrative is spun around. And I'm sorry, but I have an expectation of my appointees that if they're going to make an assumption, that they can at least call me and say, what did you really mean by this, Peter? What is it that you did? So you talk about a communication structure, okay? It should be bilateral. It shouldn't be one way. And that didn't happen. So the commentary got reported, some inaccuracies were presented, and we had to deal with it. But this kind of got escalated. And this gets escalated even more. And there's really, in my opinion, no need for that to have happened. And this is all around just talking about a membership change that the town gets to decide. Not CPC, not the select board, not Evan, but the town. And what I felt that the way that that whole proposal got twisted around about the history that got brought up about when we talked about putting someone on veterans on there and so on and so forth, which even got dropped at town meeting. Nothing really happened. I just feel that this has kind of spun out of control. So I expect that my appointees, and this is just my opinion, I expect that my appointees, okay, would act in accordance, be professional about it, and that if you have specific problems or issues, or you don't interpret something right, that you could have at least picked up the phone and maybe called and had a conversation with at least me. Or maybe one of the other members. Because under no circumstances did this board ever say, we're never going to communicate it. That was always in the plan, once we had finally had vetted and had our discussions. So it led to a lot of, and I said it the other day, unfortunate set of circumstances. And I really am looking at some of you who have been involved in town government for many, many years. I just want to say, I expect better. I expect better behavior. I expect better communications. I just expect better. The town deserves that. We deserve that. And you all deserve that as a committee as yourselves. So there's my main issue that I wanted to bring up. I didn't know if anyone else had anything that they wanted to talk about.
I'll go after that.
Go ahead.
So just
Can
to,
we respond to any of this, or?
You sure? This is very informal, open discussion, bro.
I'd like to just speak though before you have an opportunity to respond to that, because it just goes, I won't go further than your point, but the meeting where you guys showed up after it was on the agenda, the concern I have is that a majority of you guys showed up to share your individual feelings and deliberated on it before your own committee had an opportunity to get together and talk about it. So you guys were representing the CPC without even the CPC having an opportunity to weigh in on that. So that also is a concerning, way to operate. So I'll let you to respond to that if you'd like.
Brooke, can I just say one thing?
You can, yeah. I mean, I think we're
Well,
all
on
gonna
that
change.
night, I just want to make it perfectly clear. I've been here since February, and you all know that. I sit in the back every Tuesday night. That night, I did not know my fellow members were here, were coming in. So on my defense here, I did not know at all that this was going to happen that night. So I just want to throw that out there to you. If I did know that, I would have got up and left and made sure there wasn't a quorum. So, I mean.
Rich, I think just to put that to bed.
Okay, I just wanted that.
No, I just want to acknowledge, I guess, that
Right.
nobody had said that there was any reasonable expectation amongst CPC members
Yep,
that you would have a quorum that night.
okay. I just wanted that out there.
Yeah, I think even when the first initial email was sent from the town administrator, it was very much pointed out that intent was not, nobody believed there was intent to violate open meeting law that night, although it did happen, and it was pointed out several times. It just, it happened. It's the actions that happened afterwards and a couple other things that have us concerned and why we're here tonight.
I want to let Brooke go next.
Sure, no, Paul or whoever, I don't want to jump in.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would like to speak.
Please.
And if you don't mind, I think that Doreen's point about being able to provide some of the background to what led to the situation that you're speaking to now, I think is helpful to understanding where CPC is coming from. Mm-hmm. So if we look back to June of this past year, June of 21, there was a reappointment process. And there was a change in the whole process that was input by this committee, this board, the select board. And to my knowledge, there was no input gotten from any of the committees for which that reappointment process would affect. We, in fact, were only communicated, to my knowledge of it, the day before the interviews were to take place. And we were told that the chairs from the committees could only speak to what would make the ideal candidate for a position. Now, this is a change from the process that had been in place as long as I have been on a committee here in town, and that is around 14 years now. And in years past, if there was a sitting board member who wanted to get reappointed, they were typically reappointed unless there was some reason why they shouldn't be. And this change was input just this past June, and there were 5 contested seats. We went through the whole interview process. Out of those 5 contested seats, only 1 sitting member of a board or committee was taken off, and that was Jen Thomas. With 18 years of CPC experience, one of the charter members of CPC, was removed and replaced with Mr. Whitney here, who had no experience at all with CPA at that point. And there was no communication given at that meeting as to what your thought process or rationale was to that decision. In fact, just your very last meeting, Mr. Offen brought that subject up and how that was a mistake and that we want to avoid having that happen again. So you've admitted that was not the right thing to do. You should have at least provided rationale for that decision. So that was the first thing, and that was in June. And then in October, we found out at the last minute that a warrant article was being put forth by your committee to change our membership, to remove an at-large member and replace it with a Veterans Affairs committee member. It was a new committee at the time. Colleen had said that she thought it was a good idea. I will admit I will say that when the idea first came up, she was talking either a select board or a Veterans Affairs, and then somehow landed on Veterans Affairs, I guess because the new committee was coming and that had more weight to it. I don't know what the thought process was. But at any rate, it was being put on for a warrant article. CPC found out about it at the 11th hour, not because you guys communicated it to us until after we brought it up. You had not reached out. So we first reached out to the Community Preservation Coalition, which is a state organization that helps us to understand how to administer CPA. They're our resource. And they gave us information that we supplied to you in a letter explaining why we didn't think it made sense. For one thing, for Veterans Affairs, we already had a member who sits on Veterans Affairs, so that base was already covered. This wasn't something that someone in the community was asking for. This is something that you guys generated. The fact that you were looking to remove an at-large seat, we had input from the coalition that they don't recommend doing that because CPA is meant to allow the general citizens of the town to be able to have input into CPA, and that by putting another permanent seat on that committee, you remove an opportunity for those citizens to participate. So the Finance Committee ended up deciding that they were not in favor of that, and the warrant article was subsequently pulled and was not voted on at town meeting. Then this March 15th meeting came up. You guys had posted an agenda item saying that you were going to, and I'll point out exactly what the the agenda item said, which was that it's CPC membership / bylaw amendment. We didn't know anything about any prior conversations that you were having with the Affordable Housing Trust, because up until that point, the only way you would know is if you had listened in on those meetings. There was nothing on an agenda, or I suppose if you had read minutes, you might be able to find that. But it wasn't on the videos unless you went in and looked for them. It wasn't on the agenda. And really, committees shouldn't be having to monitor your agenda to know whether or not you're going to be talking about something that pertains to them. I mean, it should be, in my mind at least, a common respect that if you're going to be talking about something that is germane to a committee, that you let them know. So in case they want to participate, that they'll have that opportunity without having the misfortune of what happened to us. You posted that agenda on a Thursday right before noon. The office here at the Municipal Center closes at 1. On Fridays. We had essentially 24 hours, if we knew about that, to post an agenda. We didn't know about it. We found out about it after that window had closed. We came here. We didn't anticipate having a quorum of folks here. Turned out we did. But to your point, Ms. Roy, that there was an open meeting law violation, that hasn't been decided. The Attorney General's office needs to decide that. The question of whether or not we deliberated is very much in contention. The subject matter that I just mentioned, which was CPC, membership / bylaw amendment, has nothing to do with our jurisdiction. We don't control membership. We don't control appointment process. We don't control bylaws. That's all in your jurisdiction. So if you look at the definition of deliberation within the Attorney General's guide, it does not meet that definition, and we are allowed an exemption to have a quorum of people here as long as we don't deliberate. So the CPC is in the process of going through and responding to the complaints that were submitted and expressing that ideas. We haven't finalized it yet. We have a meeting tomorrow in which I expect we will do so, and we'll respond to that. So from my perspective, and I'm talking as a member of CPC, I don't appreciate being told that we're guilty of something when it isn't proven yet. So to me, and this wasn't mentioned either in your conversation last Tuesday, which you didn't allow any comment on. I had actually called Ms. Roy prior to that meeting and had a conversation with her. She had actually told me that I had inaccuracies in the comments that I just walked you through. She had pointed out one of them saying that it was actually 2 contested seats for which a appointment was not approved of a sitting member. I did some more research on that, and she had said it was the IT committee. The IT committee had a member that was sitting, Patricia Meyer, who hadn't been going to meetings for the most part, had expressed to their members that she didn't wish to seek reappointment. She wasn't at that June reappointment meeting and was passed over for Alan Baker, who is an experienced IT person, is well suited to take on that role. But to compare and contrast that to the situation with Jen Thomas is just, that's not a fair comparison. Jen had 18 years of experience on CPA and was replaced with somebody who had none. She had expressed interest in a letter that she wanted to continue on that role. You had no input. We weren't allowed to provide input as to her involvement by your process. And I hope that's something that you will reconsider, because there are situations where committees need to provide you with insight into why it might make sense to reappoint somebody. We have somebody coming up right now in June for reappointment. He's sitting right over there. He's our treasurer. He has a lot of knowledge. And granted, we should probably have somebody else that starts to learn to understand the ins and outs. There's a lot of different accounts that things have to go in and out of. Ken has found things that have gone wrong. There's warrant articles that are on right now to correct errors that were made previously. So he is a very important piece of what we need on the committee to understand how we act. To say that the town accountant could handle that, is she gonna go to our meetings and be able to communicate with us on those types of things? I don't think she has the capacity to do that, nor does she have the time to focus in solely on CPA. She has broader responsibilities. So, you know, she helps to enhance Ken, and Ken helps to enhance her. They work hand in hand. Well, he is up for reappointment. And if we can't provide any input, we couldn't tell you all of what I just said, and that it's important that he come back and be able to. And we can work to get somebody else up to speed, but it's going to take time to do that. And if he's not on the committee, he's not going to provide that time to do that. So you would be causing harm to our committee if you were to do that. When I talked to Ms. Roy on the phone, I asked her, I didn't ask, I told her I was looking for a path forward. There is an ability on both of our parts to look for a path forward, but it involves what Matt was talking about, the collaboration and communication, and that hasn't been displayed by your committee. So forgive us if we, as I believe you pointed out, that we feel paranoid. I actually don't think it's paranoia. I think it's reality.
Don't say I said that. Those are your words.
Yes, you said that, we said that, and
it's
it was
on
this
tape.
gentleman that said it, and I don't agree with that. I don't feel paranoia. Perception is reality. I feel that you guys aren't communicating with us, and I don't know why. Maybe you know why. But I would like that communication to start. I would like to work with you. I would like to move forward. But I wanted to get that out, so
Do you want
thank
to
you.
go, Colleen?
I do. It doesn't, you say those things, but it doesn't seem that way when you say those things. So the annual appointment notice, when you started there, it was not a day before notice. It happened several weeks. All the people up for reappointment received letters.
No, I was
No,
one of them.
no,
I did not. I
excuse me.
got noticed the day before.
Excuse me.
I disagree.
I let you finish. I disagree with a
ma'am.
lot of what you said, but I let you finish.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So that's just inaccurate, okay? And the IT comparison, that's news to me because she did not let anybody on the board know that she was not seeking reappointment. She sent a letter in saying she was seeking reappointment. So to say
You
that
did not read that letter
again,
at that
please
meeting.
stop.
Excuse me, don't interrupt, please. Just, guys, one at a time. That's all I'm asking.
Fine.
Thank you.
And again, when we're here talking about behavior and conduct, this is an example of that. Okay? Just so you're aware. That's why we're here. We're talking about behavior and conduct. So, you know, you say those things that you want to move forward and you want to do, but then you keep reliving the past. You don't want to move forward. You just want to keep rehashing the past and rehashing it inaccurately. When you say you didn't deliberate or that's up for the AG to determine, you guys didn't talk about just membership. You guys talked about the Affordable Housing Trust funding source. You talked about the Affordable Housing Trust projects. You talked about things well within your scope that makes it deliberation. And it was pointed out to you twice that you had a quorum. You went for 10 more minutes. You had a quorum. You went for 10 more minutes. You guys had an agenda that evening to come and disrupt whatever the select board was trying to have a conversation about when you didn't have the authority to do that because CPC had not met and had a discussion on where they felt. It was all about what you guys wanted as individuals, and it really put CPC in a spot where we're here tonight. You know, and it's just not great.
Brooke, did you want to say anything?
Well, I think Paul did a very good job. I mean,
Okay, is that all? Is that it?
No,
He said he did a good job.
he did do a good job. I don't
Don't
think,
repeat what he says.
I'm not going
Thank
to.
you.
I couldn't. But I don't think you even heard it. It's the second time he's gone through it, and Colleen's response was, it's still CPC's fault. If you listen to what he says, these are people who spend thousands of hours working for the town. Thousands. And yet, they're worried about, and I'm probably the one that said paranoid, getting picked off by whims of people on committees, because they say, oh, 18 years, who cares? Boom. All right. Paul went through it. When you get hit with a warrant article, and then they come and you pull it off, then you hit with another warrant article, and you say, oh, Peter, I mean, I was surprised. I guess when we're looking at this, you said we were coming here for transparency and decorum. I'm assuming this first part we're talking about is transparency. I guess. But I'm surprised that you're upset that you put down agenda items to change the warrant, and people came to the meeting to discuss it, and that you wished that they had called you on the phone instead. I mean, I think they did the appropriate thing. They saw something on the warrant, they wanted to discuss it, and they came in. And again, they're getting pushback just for doing this civic duty that everyone else does. You come in and ask questions. I just heard from Colleen that this is why we're here, because we dare to talk back.
That's not what I said.
You said, this is the problem. You said your behavior and conduct. I don't see what the behavior and conduct, Paul made a statement. He's passionate about what he does. What we should be doing is trying to get more people who are passionate to participate in town government, not making these crazy ideas and pulling open meeting law violations. And I agree with Paul. You said a couple of times that we've had a violation. There's no violation. On top of it, one of the reasons we're here, because you go from 0 to 100. I never heard you say that there was a quorum. Okay, fine, it doesn't matter. But I didn't hear you say it. Maybe you said it. And there was a quorum. I don't think anyone was. But the very next day to say, I'm filing a complaint with the Attorney General's office because there was 5 of you at a meeting to discuss something, that's 0 to 100. That deserves the phone call. That
didn't
gets the
happen
phone
either.
call like, hey, you guys, you're getting close, you know, you might have had an open meeting law violation. And when we tried to discuss that, the answer was, you file it on yourselves, or I'm going to file it on you. Well, it boggles my mind that this is what we're spending our time on. We came in here months ago, spending our time on poor John Stevens wrote something about affordable housing, and you guys went berserk. And we had to come in here because of that. You're elevating things. You don't see it. You don't see putting a warrant article, bringing John Stevens in to
I'm sorry, John is not here, Brooke.
Doesn't matter if not.
Yeah, I want to say this right. Wait a minute. You're talking about somebody else. Not here, not cool. Move on.
Okay. I'm going to just say this for 1 second. If that were true, Peter, if you were not cool with that, the last meeting when you were discussing some of our names in open session, when we were not there, you would have thought that was not cool.
That's why you're here, Brooke.
No, Peter, you spoke.
You're here because of that.
You don't have to say people's names in public. If you're saying I can't tell John Stevens, which he was in a meeting, but it's irrelevant.
All right.
All I'm saying is, you've done things, you've set fires, and now you're surprised that there's a fire. And if it weren't, I think what's upsetting most of you is you've come to meetings and there's been pushback on your proposals. That's what I think's the problem, and you're upset about that. And if you'd like to go through those proposals, I'm glad to do that. If that's what's upsetting you, because I don't know what the transparency and decorum problem is, because when people have discussions like adults, Matt, they disagree and they speak. And just because people disagree and speak, that's not insubordination. And I take a little offense to you calling us your appointees. We're appointed by the Board of Selectmen. I don't even know if you appointed me. I'm pretty sure, you probably didn't appoint all of us. But once we're appointed, we're our own people. We don't sit and do what you want us to do. We have to do what we think is right. And when our time comes up, you can replace us. That's the rule. That's the way it works. But before our time is up, you have to listen to us because we're here just like you're here. And we'll listen to you and you listen to us, but you have no more power than the rest of us. And I just think you think that we have to do what you say. We have to do what the CPC rules are. Again, if you want to go through some of those things where it's been pushed back and maybe our behavior our conduct wasn't up to your liking because we pushed back, we can talk about that. That's open for discussion, sure, if that's what you want to do. But I don't see any behavioral conduct or lack of transparency or anybody in this committee. I see it in yours, and I think Paul's articulated it twice now, and you failed to even acknowledge it.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Ray.
This is turning into the crap show that I thought it was going to turn into. And I usually don't call it a crap show. But were there communication gaps? Yep. On our side, on your side, on the side of the town administrator, on everybody's side. Okay? And that happened. You guys showed up, and I think the town administrator made a suggestion that maybe we should just file, a letter that says, hey, we didn't make a mistake, but, we all showed up, and we're just gonna file a letter that just says, hey, you know what, we possibly did, but we, you know, we're not admitting whatever it to. That turned into another crap show. And I gotta be honest with you, I didn't watch your meetings. I watched maybe 10 minutes. That's about all I can handle. I can't, you know, the ADD kicks in and I can't watch it all. So what we've got here is we got a big mishigas. Okay? It's a confusion. It's lack of communication from your side, from our side, from whatever. You guys keep dragging up the past. And I do want to say something about that. That when we make appointments, no one sitting here knows who's going to make the motion or who's going to say a name or not say a name. We have no idea. So we can't notify anybody that this person may not get appointed, because that would mean we discussed it. So what I want to do is I just want to put all of this stuff behind us and move on. And that's all. Let's, as I said, we got a big mishigas here, and we just need to all put on our big boy pants and then just walk away and get over it. And you get over it. We'll get over it. Did we not communicate with you? You're absolutely correct, Brooke. You're absolutely correct. We did not communicate with this committee at every time that we should have notified them. Yes. And I was a part of that. But it's old news. Can we just move on and be done with this? It's not, as Jim Gallagher said, you guys have done a lot of good things, and so have we. It's making us both look like we're junior high kids in the gym, you know, wondering who's got the smelly socks on. I mean, come on. Let's just get over it.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, you gotta change your socks, right? You can't
Oh,
just
no, I never
not
did.
address it.
I never did.
Well,
I kept them on all year.
that's unfortunate. But I think we're here beyond just what happened on the 15th and after. We're here based on how they're showing support towards projects that they ultimately end up funding too. And it does feel like certain projects get treated differently than other projects, and we haven't even discussed that yet either. And that's
Can I just, I'm sorry, Colleen, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to talk about that just very briefly. That there are people who went before CPC who feel that they didn't get a fair shake. Absolutely did. What I want to say is not one person, committee, or organization filed a complaint against CPC for the way they were treated. And if you don't file a complaint, or you don't go to CPC and say, hey, you know what, you guys treated me like crap, you know, then you walk away. Honest to God, I just want to
where would you file that?
Well, you'd file it with them.
So the people who mistreated you, you're expected to go file a complaint with them? I don't see
Yeah,
that
well,
actually
geez,
being a thing.
I would hope so.
And then that has to go
Do you
to
want
the
to,
clerk.
stop.
I would hope so.
Thank you. Did you want to go ahead and address any?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Colleen.
No,
I didn't mean to interrupt.
that was it. It's just that it's an attitude that just seems to spiral between how you guys perceive the board, me specifically. A lot of the time it seems that it's a lot directed towards me. That's why I had that phone call with you, Mr. Scarlett, because I wanted to try to help clear things up. I don't think that was successful. It doesn't seem like things have been cleared up as you keep repeating the inaccuracies. But yeah, it's just.
Please. If you guys can't.
But
please.
then when projects come before you, if you don't like the person who's bringing the project or what you think the project stands for, you guys make them go through this gauntlet and then you ultimately fund it. So it's just bizarre that certain. Well, yeah, take Evans for example. That's a great example. The school, just this past cycle, the schools.
We can go to anyone you want.
Stop. Look, guys.
It was a discussion, Peter.
It is a discussion, but please don't interrupt. That's all I'm asking.
It just seems that it was treated very differently. So if you watch the meeting on the 24th specifically, you see, and these were projects you ultimately funded, but you just see how they were treated and talked to, and then you see the Unitarian Church come in and nothing. They had a liaison. They had their handheld. They were shown the right way to do it, and the other people are told, figure it out. It's wrong. Figure it out. Come back. And I don't like that. I don't feel like people should be, or even comments of, yeah, and next thing you know, we're gonna have department heads coming in here asking for CPA funds. Fantastic. If they have projects that qualify for CPA funds, I hope they're coming to you guys. But why would they when the attitude is, don't bother because I'm going to say no? That's not a great attitude to have out there.
Ken, you've been quiet for a while, so.
Yeah, I'd like to address that particular issue that I think some people on the board feel. And the first thing I'd say is that, I've been on the board for, I think, since 2003. And I have recently looked at the list of projects that the CPA has funded in that time, and I think we can say that the committee has recommended, and the town has recommended that the town take up every single grant that was brought to the committee that was qualified under the CPA. Every single one. There have been there have been 6 projects that town meeting didn't accept, and that's their prerogative. But every project that brought in was accepted. It's one thing to say is that the committee's been fortunate that it's always had at least just enough funding to support every project. So the committee never had to make a hard choice of selecting one over another. That's good news. But every project that's been qualified has been funded. When a few projects have come in that were not fundable, and in some cases it was just there was no chance, and they were declined. In most cases though, the committee works with the applicant to try to figure out if there's a way that the project can be stated and positioned so that it would comply with the requirements of the Act. And unfortunately, at the last 2 regular CPC meetings, 2 projects were brought in that were not qualified for the Act, and brought in by the town. One of them was to digitize effectively contemporaneous town records, and it was supposedly, the application was to do it under the historical preservation category. And the historical preservation category, of course, on the face of it, requires that that it be a property or a building or an object of provable historical qualification, and that's defined. And and the town has been restoring historical town records, and that is allowed under the Act, and the town does that. And the CPA recommended, and the town approved that. But the contemporaneous records were just not qualified. Purely not. But they were brought in, and we had to, say, sorry, that's not qualified. The second project was the South Grafton Community House painting project. That's the title, South Grafton Community House painting. And the Act is quite clear that painting, or that maintenance is clearly not allowed. It's just not. And you can't say that the committee hasn't supported the South Grafton Community House, because over the past 10 years, 20 years, there's been $245,000 worth of money that has been recommended and the town has passed just to restore the South Grafton Community House. Probably half of it was exterior renovation, which did include painting of those parts. Now, the committee supports that project, that building, and in fact, half the committee was vocally in support of that project, but they knew that they couldn't recommend painting. So after the first meeting, as Paul Scarlett mentioned, we queried the Community Preservation Coalition, the state group, to see, can these 2 projects be done? And the answer came back in 2 letters that said no and no. And so at the most recent regular meeting, the second project, the Community House painting project, was brought back up again. And it was Paul Scarlett, it was Jim Gallagher, and it was John Stevens who worked really hard to try to figure out a way to position that project so that it could be funded. And that's what you say, we put the applicant over the ringer. What these guys were trying to do was to find a way to position the project that could be funded. They were asking, it was determined that there was no actual quotation that was detailed. This is what the project was made up of, and so these guys were saying, well, maybe the restoration work of the wood is a whole lot bigger fraction of the $50,000, and that wasn't real clear. That went back and forth, and finally they said, well, maybe it was, and then try to get to sum up the analysis. I recommended that the project be reissued to the committee and to change the name of the project from painting to South Grafton Community House Exterior Restoration and Painting. And with that agreed, enough of the committee felt that there was a fig leaf that we could accept the project, and the vote was taken and it was accepted. So, Colleen, to speak to what you said, we may have put the applicant through the ringer, but it was trying to help them get to a point where the project could be stated in a way that it was legal to fund, and that was done.
Well, the tone really changed when the town administrator said he had extra money to put towards the project, and the percentages changed. So you're not totally representing it.
That's what we needed. That's what the committee needed. With that, we could say, well, the restoration is a whole lot more, a larger percentage of the $50,000 requested, and that would make it primarily a restoration project that, of course, had to be painted when it was done.
So if that's what you guys needed, why didn't you ask the applicant for that? Why did you make them go through all of that before it was finally?
It was an iterative process. When the project was first proposed, it was just not qualified. And the committee went through a lot of work with the applicant to try to find a way that the applicant could restate it in a way that the committee could fund it. And that it worked out that way. And yes, it was a lot of work, but that was because it was so unqualified when it came in.
So what specifically did you do with the applicant when you say you did a lot of work?
I didn't.
You can just say me. I'm ready.
I know. That one of the problems it's the town administrator. Right, that's he's the moving part. Yeah, finish. But you're saying the applicant. It was the town.
The rationale brought by the town administrator, and forgive me, Evan,
no, you're
was
good.
Because it should be passed because lots of other towns do it, and lots of other towns have unsophisticated community preservation committees, and they approve things they shouldn't, and there's no CPC police, and so chances are they don't get caught and it goes on and it's just fine. But it doesn't follow the act. The only CPC police are citizens who sue the town and the committee claiming that a project is not qualified. And several of them have won. But we don't want to go through a legal process like that, and I don't know anybody who would have sued the town for that. But if someone did, we would have lost. And so the problem is that other towns are unsophisticated, and the rationale presented to the committee over and over again was other towns do it, and that didn't fly with this committee.
And
I want to state something on. I just want to comment on that, Brooke, real quick. I appreciate when committees do their due diligence, and I do acknowledge the work that goes into reviewing projects, making sure that they're in alignment with what the intent is. I'm fine with that. I will say that, seeing like the past few meetings probably was a very unfair observation, because over the past few meetings it seemed, again, this is my observation, you can't change that, this is just my opinion and how I feel, that it felt that it was confrontational, and it shouldn't have been. It just felt that way. And a lot of other people who I've had watch just that part to make sure, like, geez, am I on an island here just thinking that? No. They were like, yeah, I would hate to be the applicant right now. And that was other people's opinions. Yeah. But just observing. And I can say this, I think one of the ideas here, and Matt teed this up pretty well, is, communication and be able to work through. Again, this board has its process.
when it talks about what it wants to present. And by the way, anyone can change the bylaw in this town. You just need 10 signatures, not just the select board. It's not under our purview. If you want to change the bylaw, all you need to do is present the warrant article. Okay? Done that in the past a lot. But to say like, you know, we're the only ones, and when we go through our process, again, the reason why that item has been discussed, I would say for what, 3 meetings for the CPC membership, and I know I'm kind of probably beating a dead horse there, is because it gives this board an opportunity. Are we sure we want to do this? What are those implications? What are those ramifications? What are the pros? What are the cons? Hey, before we bring CPC in here, let's just make sure we're okay with it. And then let's send that to them. So the fact that I didn't intend to be communicated to the CPC, maybe it didn't like your timing, or to Mr. Mead's point, maybe you all want to know anytime that you guys are on our agenda, if that's the type of communication you want, I will make sure the staff in the office knows that anytime we mention CPC in our agenda, copy the chair and the entire board so they're aware of it. But again, it's our discussion.
I don't like you beating this. But Peter, if that goes contrary to everything that when we came into that meeting, they said you were told to tell us, but you forgot to tell us
Oh,
about this.
no. I wasn't at that meeting, and they misunderstood me. And they misunderstood it because if you go back to the other meetings, it was
anyway,
their,
I'm gonna get
no,
caught on
I'm gonna,
it. It's
no,
totally different
stop,
than what they
Mr.
said.
Paget, I got the floor. Because you're wrong. Previous meetings, their meeting was at the end of March. That was our last scheduled meeting to discuss before we were going to let you know that we were moving forward with this. End of story.
Okay, the end of your story, fine. You were not at that meeting. You were not at that meeting when we came. What we were told was you were supposed to be notified. We were supposed to tell you. We were going to have a discussion. We were going to be called in. But Peter, who's not here, did not tell you. That's what was said. And you can say that they didn't say it, but that's exactly, am I wrong? That's what happened. And I want to get away from that. What I do want to say, to get back to what Ken was saying, I think there's a fundamental problem with some members of this board. You do not understand CPC. I don't think you do.
CPA?
CPA, CPC, same thing. When it was passed, and I know I've had many discussions with Evan, and we go back and forth.
Devin's fine.
Evan. He has a different perception than I do. But I know in the rules, it is not to take the place of general budget expenses. So when you say, I hope department heads come in, it shows me that it's a fundamental misunderstanding of the program. When you brought in the CIPC list and said, what can we do on this list? It's a fundamental misunderstanding of the program. It is not to take general budget expenses and bring it to CPC. That's not the purpose. The purpose of CPC is money from this town to do little cherry things on top, projects that would never have a budget, never have funding from the town. The town wouldn't do it. Boat ramps, parks, things of that nature. That's what it's for. And that's in bylaw, that's what's written. And I know Evan has a different idea, but it's what it says. General budget expenses are excluded. That's what's supposed to happen. So I think, can we learn something? Sure. I think you could learn something. Go to a CPC, whatever you want to call it. What did you go to, Richard?
Workshop.
A workshop. And learn what CPC is for. So when you come in, you're not expecting something and getting pushback, because it's not, to go back to the school, for the most part, has a budget, and they do things. And they brought a proposal, a large proposal, 300,000, whatever it was, and we pushed back, and then they came back for us with a smaller proposal, right, just for the ADA compliant part. To me, that shows that they had it within their budget, and they were looking for CPC money, so they didn't have to use their budget. That's not what it's for. And we can't approve things, to go back to what Ken says, we have a fiduciary responsibility. There's $1 million in this thing. And I know that looks good for the town, that the $1 million, it's great, but it can only be used for what it can be used for. And the budgets, the proposals have to be proper, and it has to fit within the rules. And if it doesn't, you're going to get pushback. And I'm sorry for that, but that's what you're going to get, because the people on this committee take it seriously, and other towns, as Ken said, may not it's as sophisticated or take it as seriously, but they take it seriously, and I think you should applaud them because they're taking the town's money and paying attention to it and doing what's supposed to be done under the rules.
Who ultimately decides on CPC funding?
The town.
The meeting. I just want to make sure. Yep. Town meeting is the ultimate
But
decision.
absolutely,
Not
if
you.
it meets the criteria. If it doesn't meet the criteria, it doesn't go forward.
Go ahead, Matt. Thanks.
And we've approved every one.
Right.
Well, so I just wanted to, I guess, register some of my concerns. One was the response to the concerns about open meeting law. I had some serious concerns about that. There's some disagreement, I guess, on whether there was deliberation or not. What I heard was some commentary around, if this is a matter of public interest that you guys might make a recommendation on, that would qualify as something that would, not be able to be deliberated on. To me, that was, there was a number of things in that meeting. But it's not really even about, whether there was a clear open meeting law violation or not. It was the committee's response to it. I don't get it. Anybody, and you guys all know this, Brooke, you definitely know this, who's been in town government for any length of time has dealt with concerns about open meeting law. And the way...
I have to say I've never really had a lot of, it's not, to your thing, that you say this was a serious offense when 5 people show up in a meeting on an agenda to ask a question. I don't find it serious one bit.
But that's
I have a
and-
serious,
and-
hang on
sorry,
just
go
one
ahead.
sec. No, I have a serious concern about the response, not about actually what happened. So
too.
when it got called out, and the town administrator sent some advice along in an email, what happened after that is what I'm deeply concerned about. I think just from an optic standpoint, I was up here at that meeting. We had a group of CPC cross-talking, sitting right there, addressing this board, not some at the mic, some not at the mic. The optics of that for us, for the people in the audience that night, and for the people watching, were just not good. There was a number of topics that came up, and so just to sort of cover your butt, just follow the advice of the town administrator. I just don't understand, and then we just move on.
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead, Paul. Yeah, thank you.
So, you have to take the open meeting law violation in context with everything else that I went through. I didn't touch really too much on that, but that came after the whole thing with the reappointment process. That came after the first time you went to the, we're looking to go with a town meeting warrant to change the bylaws to have an at-large person removed. That came after this meeting where you were moving forward again to do that. We finally show up to find out what's going on, and 2 days later, this letter appears. First one telling us that you want to change the membership and you want our thoughts on it. And then followed right up with a letter saying that we were in violation of open meeting law and that if we don't report ourselves, you'll report us. So take that in context, not out of context, to try and give you, some reason why we might react the way we did. But also, by us not reporting it, what was prevented from happening? Somebody else ended up filing a complaint, and we're responding to it. And we're meeting tomorrow to finish our response. So the fact that we didn't respond to it really has no bearing on anything, in my opinion. So, and then I'd like to talk to one thing else because
I
I've
just
heard
disagree
people-
with
So, Paul, I just want to make sure Matt has had an opportunity to address his concerns directly with that, and just have him a minute just before you move on to a separate concern.
Sure.
Thank you.
So, thanks for bringing us back to June of 2020. And
Sorry.
again, I appreciate your continued Back to the Future or whatever. I just think we need to move past that. I've talked about it in an open meeting. It wasn't an ideal process. We changed our process to try to get just a more just an improved process for reappointments, and that was our first run through it. It wasn't perfect, but we've also had a number of conversations in open meeting about how we're going to improve the process going forward. So we're looking to learn from our mistakes, and as I hope all boards and committees do. This is one of those circumstances where I feel like there's some learning on both sides, but you know, there was the potential to just follow the TA's advice and move on with it, and then there just wouldn't be any of this energy put towards this.
How about calling the committee and saying, you might have been in violation, you should watch it?
Wait,
Because really, what is the public harm? And once he was said to us, file a complaint against yourself or I will, and we say, I'm not gonna file a complaint because we're under exemptions. We didn't violate it, despite what everyone thinks. Regardless, there is a third party that can decide. It's the Attorney General's office. You made the complaint, we're gonna respond to it. If we're wrong, we'll say we're wrong. That's all it is. And if you're wrong, I hope you would say you're wrong. And
So
let it go. Let the process go.
I just have a big problem with that.
Well, you filed the complaint. You said file the complaint, remove your complaint.
You guys got an email and could have had a couple of different ways to deal with it, and rather
And we chose to say, no, we did not violate it, and if you would like to file a complaint, go ahead, and we'll go to the Attorney General, as was suggested to us. I don't see how you can be the moving party and then say to us, oh, I wish you didn't, then don't do it. Don't make the complaint if you want it to go away. You don't say to me, you didn't do it, I think you did something wrong. No, I didn't. Well, admit you did something wrong so we can move on.
Paul,
That's not
before
how
we
it
get
works.
before we get to that next situation, Evan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, you're totally mischaracterizing what the letter said. Wholly, which is really frustrating. I carefully worded the email so that you would see that we are having a conversation about this, that I think that something occurred that certainly has the optics to look badly. Is it a major issue? No. All I was looking for was someone to acknowledge, yep, that probably doesn't look great. We'll file it and move on. That's it. There's no other intent. I'm talking, Brooke, so just hold on one sec, please.
I didn't say
Oh, you're winding up. I've seen you enough time. I know you are.
I'm always wound up on that.
But I can tell you my reaction when I came to your meeting, and I apologize for my frustration, was because when I sit next to Brooke, you're wagging your finger at me and saying you talked to the AG's office and they said don't let him file. That's verbatim what you said.
I'm not denying any of that.
Right. So,
Other than the finger wag, I'm not sure I was.
No, I watched it.
Was it?
Yeah. Which is fine normally, but I was a little spooled up, so I apologize for that. But really, I was frustrated with, this characterization that says, if you don't file, I will. Well, I guess if you ignored all of the other context of that letter, then that's your takeaway. And I'm sorry that it's within the context of all the other things that you've discussed here tonight. But I even state that in the letter, that I realize that I say I've thought a lot about how to approach the committee with this issue without feeding into the contentiousness of the situation. Like, I get all the rest of it, and you guys have stuff going on with the board, and, I have a project, and we're talking about the project, and blah, blah, blah. My sole goal is to increase transparency and make the town look as good as we can. That's it. I have no other subtext, no other agenda, and nowhere in my wildest imagination did I think that would be the response, quite frankly.
Colleen and then Doreen.
Um,
Evan,
Mr.
I'm just gonna
Chair,
say, I remember I had, they want to address something, Paul.
Yes.
Colleen and then Doreen.
I'll pass. Go ahead, Doreen.
Yeah, so I just want to add on that I also take issue with how the open meeting law was handled, and not so much even the not agreeing that, in which your committee was completely split on whether or not you violated open meeting law or not. And I don't even think that's a discussion because none of us work in the AG's office as attorneys. So I don't know if you broke open meeting law, which was a point Brooke made. But I took issue with watching your meeting and the commentary with your acting chair, with the TA, with the select board members that showed up. And just I'm trying to understand why it wasn't just filed. And Paul, you know you had stated it's a lot of background, and I think that this would apply to any committee that did this. It would apply to us if we showed up at your meeting and we was like, oh gosh, we just broke open meeting law. We should probably self-file. It's not. It wasn't meant. When I read Evan's email and agreed with it, there was no tone in there saying that, there was anything wrong. It's just like this happened. It was a confused conversation. We need to fix it. And it would probably be best if your whole committee agreed and just took care of it. And so, but then what happened is it was brought into your public meeting, and I'm watching CPC members completely disagree on how to handle it. And that's what I take issue with, because when I look at the position of the board, the position of CPC members, we're representing an institution. We're representing the town of Grafton. We have to follow guidelines. We have to follow Mass General Law. Those of you who have been doing this way longer than any of us know that. And so I was really disappointed that that's how this played out. And I want just to say that, because there's this defensiveness that I think we're working through this evening. And I'm taking notes and getting a full understanding of some missteps that we've taken or things that I didn't understand that have happened in the past. And I think our board has, generally speaking, done a really good job at collaborating with boards and committees. And, maybe we haven't with CPC as much as we should. And there's a lot to learn with CPC. But when I'm watching within the CPC committee this issue come up, and this behavior toward the acting chair and the town administrator that night, it was just, as Peter put, unfortunate. And it's not personal, it's not even about CPC. Again, it's about how we want to run the town of Grafton. And I just don't understand why the decision was made that half of you said, yes, we should file, and half of you said, no, we shouldn't. We didn't break open meeting law. Because we don't know if we broke open meeting law.
It was 6-3.
6-3, yeah.
Can I get it?
Paul wanna he's been waiting.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, so I appreciate it. So, I'm not trying to, reopen old wounds. I want to move forward too, Matt. But I haven't heard from this board other than Ray, any real acknowledgement of the concerns that we've expressed. And to take the whole situation with the open meeting law supposedly being violated, without taking that situation into context is just wrong. Everything that went into leading up to that created that environment. And that meeting, I agree with you, Peter, it was really unfortunate. The situation that transpired between the letter that was sent by the select board asking us to bring this whole matter of the Affordable Housing Trust becoming a member, there was the expectation that we were going to talk about that and make a decision that night. In addition to that, we had this open meeting law violation that was thrown at us. In addition to that being one of 2 meetings a year where we talk about all of the projects that are going to be going before town meeting. Those are always long meetings to begin with. And in addition, we already had Affordable Housing Trust on our agenda to come and provide us input on how they had spent CPC or CPA funds the prior year. So throwing in the open meeting law violation and this new to us idea to change the bylaws and allow affordable housing to have a permanent seat, and then have a number of the select board show up to that meeting along with the town administrator because he had a project to come up. It was a circus is what it was. And it was unfortunate. I don't disagree with that at all. But to not take what we're saying and just, say that we were wrong and not deciding that we must be at fault and let's submit this, or we don't know and let's submit it and, and find out. We wanted to discuss it. We didn't really have an opportunity in that meeting setting to adequately do that. We have met now on that, and we've got our position pretty much nailed down, and we're going to be discussing it again tomorrow night, and we'll respond. But I'm not hearing anything from you guys saying that you're acknowledging some of the things that I've outlined here. All I've heard is Ms. Roy say that they're inaccurate, but I haven't heard her articulate anything that was inaccurate at all. So I want to move forward too, but it has to be a two-way street. Let's put things behind us and move forward and acknowledge that, hey, in the past, neither one of us perhaps did the exact job that we wanted to do in working together. I'm willing to do that and move forward. Are you guys?
Colleen? And then,
Paul, you gotta stop saying things about me that are just not true. You're saying that you haven't heard the board acknowledge mistakes in the past, where tonight we talked about how we acknowledge mistakes we made in the annual appointment process last year, and we've taken steps to improvement. So we've done just what you've asked. You've said I have made accusations of inaccuracies but haven't given you specific examples, but we talked about it at length on that phone conversation, as well as we talked about the IT committee or the fact that the annual appointment. I've given you specific examples and I have them written down as I do this, so I'm taking notes, and you just keep casting this net of, Miss Roy's doing this, Miss Roy's doing that, and I'm kind of tired of it. Can we stop doing that, please?
No, because you just said, again, something inaccurate. The IT committee person didn't even show up to that meeting.
We have we have the list right here. She sent a letter of her intent saying
her letter was not read.
But that's you're saying that.
I wasn't. No, I was there.
Guys, we're not going.
I was there. Can I finish, please, Peter? Can I just finish my thought?
IT committee has nothing to do with this.
Yeah, it does.
No, it doesn't. But what's the rest of your thought?
She is saying I'm inaccurate. The person was not here. If she submitted a letter, it wasn't read. A letter was read for Jen Thomas. So that should have been the process if someone had submitted a letter. You did not submit a letter or did not read a letter because I was here.
Okay,
and it wasn't read.
I think what you're misunderstanding is all of the candidates up for reappointment were sent letters asking if they intended to apply again. That's the letter I'm talking about. She received a letter from the town letting her know that the annual reappointment process has changed, when the date's going to be that we're doing this. This is about a month or so ahead of time, and she submitted that she was interested in keeping her seat. That is the letter I'm referring to.
And she didn't show that night.
And she didn't show that night.
All right.
That's not the same as Jen Thomas submitting a letter.
Again, Jen Thomas isn't here, and we're not going to talk about people who aren't here. We've established that earlier.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
First of all, I'm sick and tired of getting thrown underneath the bus by this committee, especially by Paul Scarlett. I've been sitting here listening to this. Okay? I'm running for selectman, and this is not flying with me, 100%. I am with this committee, doing stuff with this committee, trying to get my voice, and every time I turn around, there is feel like a knife in my back. I'm the guy backed up against the door, trying to get out. Okay? I raise my hand at the meeting, I get fired down. I put my hand up, I gotta scream and yell to get myself heard. Okay? Now, Paul is saying here about Jen. Jen's not here, but I put my application in well over a year ago, before the same time Brooke got on, and turned around, and Brooke got on. I was a couple days late, so my letter was still in the file. Now what happens? Now they keep going back to the same thing with Jen. She's been on for 19 years. Okay, That's great. I appraise her for doing that for the town. It's great. But what happens if she walked across the street and got hit by a bus or was in a car accident? What would we have done? You say that you took somebody else off the board that had 19 years experience, and a man that got appointed, got put on the board with no experience. Well, I had experience in ComCom. I've had experience in other things, in business, but not in this. I have gone to these workshops. I have been doing this. I've been doing my homework. There's an item on the agenda that you gentlemen will say, it's been there for 10 years from Roger Holman. It's a monument. I asked if I could have that. I was given to it, didn't I?
Yes, you've done a great
Okay.
job with that. Thank you for running with that.
And within 24 hours, I had the stuff done that's been sitting there for 10 years, and now you're going back to these people. Can I say this?
Rich, let's
Can we
pull this back.
stop?
Bring this back
I'm
to
bringing
the
it
genesis
back
of
in.
the conversation.
Can we stop and just get along and move forward? Let's drop all the stuff and go forward, because that's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be a committee, not at each other's throat. The old days are the old days. Today is today, and tomorrow's tomorrow. We got to look at our future for the town.
I'm going to say this real quick. The whole purpose of this meeting is to have this conversation. As uncomfortable it is, okay, it's part of the evolutionary process of working through conflict and disagreement. And I appreciate everyone's commentary tonight. We've all kept our cool pretty well, okay? And I did shake my finger at Brooke once, but he didn't call me out. All right.
Doesn't upset me.
Point at me. You know, I think in the spirit, I think you had one item that you wanted to address one more before we...
I've got a couple of things.
Okay.
I just wanted to go back to, I guess, Evan's experience as a requester. Ken, I hear what you're saying with, the committee was working to try to get it to be qualified because it didn't come in qualified, right? I do really understand that. Watching the meetings, though, it didn't feel like there was a desire or I don't know, a real excitement for trying to work with Evan to get it there. It felt like watching the meeting. It was very much CPC was trying to almost came prepared to say no to this because of the fact that it was painting and there was some percentage of maintenance. I understand some of that, but the discussion was a little bit of this quality where it was just very contentious. And I just want CPC, when requesters come in, no matter who they are, to feel like they're welcome, to feel like you guys have your kind of customer service hats on and you're partnering with them to try to get these requests to qualify. And it just didn't feel like that at all. Even to the very end, there was this discussion about the fact that Evan had some, funding in his pocket. And then it was almost like, CPC had a way to save face and still approve, moving forward with it. It was weird until that very moment. The whole thing was just really argumentative and contentious. And it just can't be like that. I understand you guys are following the CPA rules. I really do. But the quality of the conversation and the experience of the requesters going in, it just has to be positive. It has to be customer service and it has to be friendly. And I just didn't see that. And there might have been other things going on. I don't know. You keep talking about the context and everything. That has to be, I hope, acknowledged by CPC as just a misstep and not an ideal situation. I don't want to see that going forward at all. And just one last thing, so that I can kind of just get my all of my concerns out. Brooke, I think there is a little bit of a misalignment in terms of you've mentioned several times about augmenting budgets and whatnot. and I don't know how to align this board's understanding of CPA and all of that with the way that you think about it, but we gotta come to some agreement on that. I need to, because I think I'm kind of agreeing with Colleen in that if we have department heads who are coming with requests that qualify to be funded by CPA, that we should be working, considering that in the capital planning process with all of the other funding sources, to get it funded in the right way. And it could be that we have things that could appear in other budgets, because a lot of this can appear in lots of different funding sources, grants and kind of business as usual, operational expense budgets, and a number of different, to just sort of out of the gate say, nope, it could be in another budget where, it's automatically kind of discounted as a project. I just don't agree with that. And I think, I really don't appreciate being told to go to CPC seminars, but we do need to understand a little bit better how you guys think about that, I guess, because I don't think it's about CPA rules and all that. I think, Brooke, you kept talking about how it was sold to the town. A lot's changed, and I think maybe CPC is still thinking about things the way that it did 15, 20 years ago, and a lot's changed in terms of the CPA Act has changed. Our capital planning process has completely changed. Our budget challenges and mechanisms have all changed. A lot's changed. So I want to open up that conversation a little bit to really understand where you guys are at with that.
Okay, but let me just respond to just one thing. I'm glad to have the discussion. I think it's a good discussion. We probably should have a discussion like that. What I always relate back to, because I made the proposal in 2001 to take CPC, that proposal was how I've laid it out, right? It's not for general expense budgets. It's not. And that, in our last letter from the executive director, he said painting is usually a general budget expense, so it's not eligible. So we can have that discussion. I'm saying to go back there, maybe we all go back, and maybe we have, whatever the guy's name is, Stewart, have him come in and explain it to us. But that's the way it was sold to the town. That's the way they present it to us. I'm gonna let Paul speak because he does it much better than I do. The one thing I don't want you to think that any of the context he keeps going into has anything to do with the proposals. No proposal is looked at in the context of all this other stuff. I think there's an open wound for some people because they feel like they're being attacked all the time. And so there is context for that, and I agree with them, and I feel the same as them. But every project that comes in front of that CPC is based on its merits. It's not based on any context or slight or anything that's happened in the past. And as to Evans, you couldn't do it. It's an 80-20 painting. We had an executive director, and if you're upset about the contentiousness in that, as Ken said, when you say you can't do it, and they say, no, we can do it, and you say, no, you can't do it, and they say, well, I've done it other places, and you say, no, you can't do it, well, it's just you're holding it up, and we say the executive director says we cannot do it, it gets contentious because you're pushing back, and a little bit like tonight, not that I'm going to go down that road, I don't think people are hearing. I don't think Evan was hearing it. And I know he wasn't hearing it because we have multiple emails that he sent back and forth to Stewart trying to say, hey, I want to do this. I've done it before. And Stewart writing back to him saying, doesn't matter. You can't do it. And so he gave it back the same way. Only, I think he even wrote him, don't shoot the messenger. Maybe some of us argue a little louder or a little more passionately so some people get their back up. I've been to a lot of meetings, and this is not a big deal, what we're doing here. I don't see a lot of people screaming and yelling, slamming the door, calling people this, walking around. I've seen a lot worse meetings. And to be called in for this, I just think is, again, you've gone from 0 to 100 to try to make an issue out of something that has absolutely zero value to the town and was not serious about the open meeting law or the way I just don't see it in the meeting. We can go, and I don't want to prolong it, but maybe someday we sit down and you can go through each one of these projects and we can tell you why you got pushed back.
I think Brooke, I think we are going to agree to disagree that this is not going from 0 to 100. This is going from 0 to 25 miles an hour. But go ahead, Paul.
So Matt, he said most of the things that I wanted to, but I think you're conflating open discussion amongst the members of CPC about a project, which is how we have to do it, right? Just like you have to discuss everything in open. So when we are evaluating a project, we have to determine whether it falls under CPA. The first time we met with Evan, when he brought this to us, we mentioned that, painting is not, and in fact, the meeting before that, that Colleen was at, which you also mentioned in your agenda as being something that should be reviewed, we talked about that too, that painting is a maintenance item and it can't be covered. And when Brooke talks about budgeted capital projects, to the extent that they're budgeted and a maintenance item, we can't support that. So when the school committee came this time around with a project that was more broad than what we ended up funding,
ADA focused.
we needed to focus on the ADA pieces of it, what pieces we could do. So we had that discussion, they came back, they found an alternative source for the pieces we couldn't fund and brought us something that we could. That's part of the dialogue and process that goes on. And I will be the first to admit that that was a contentious meeting on the 24th, but that's a two-way street there too that led to it. So if you look at that one meeting and think that that's what all our meetings are like, far cry from it. Have you gotten any input from Candy LaValle on the experience she had? I had to work with her on her request to what's the term I'm looking for, Ken, for the yes, the digitization of documents. I had to reach out to the coalition on that, and I had to provide her the information that we couldn't support it. I did find also that there is an avenue to get free digitization done, and I provided her that information. So I worked together with her on it. I didn't hear her complain. She didn't end up choosing to show up at our last meeting. She told me that she was withdrawing the project. So we tried to work with everyone. You talked about the UU-SGU having preferential treatment. They didn't have preferential treatment. When they came to us the first time, we brought up to them the fact that there was a court case in Acton where community members sued the town because they were funding a project which in part included restoring windows, stained glass windows that had religious imagery on them. And so we had to research that court case to see if it had any implications for us, because we didn't want to set up the town for a potential lawsuit. This one doesn't have anything to do with that. This has to do with planning to make the building accessible for everyone, for a hall that is on their second floor that today is inaccessible, but is open to the public for numerous meetings that they have. So I'm just trying to point out that it's sometimes a challenge to go back to people and tell them, sorry, your project can't be covered by CPA. And sometimes people get upset with that. Sometimes we have to follow up afterwards, because one of our other obligations is to follow up on projects that have been approved by the town to make sure the funding is being spent appropriately, because CPA funds should not be spent first. If they've got other funding, that funding should be spent first. And also some of the things that they may be doing don't qualify for CPA funding. So we have to do our fiduciary responsibility and monitor that. And sometimes things come up during that process too that people aren't that happy about. But we have an obligation to the town to do what we said we were going to do. And that's what we do. And I don't think we're unprofessional in doing it.
Before we go ahead, Colleen.
So just to respond to that, I know nobody's denying that you have a responsibility to CPA and you want to represent it to the best of your ability. Nobody's debating that. It's just how you choose to exercise representing it with specific projects that it comes across as certain projects gets preferential treatment. I have not talked to Candy LaValle specifically, but I have talked to another candidate who was before you in the last couple of years, and that's Ray Mead. And he did not have a warm and fuzzy experience with you guys either. And as you know, I've followed a majority of your meetings for the last 2 years. This is not something I'm just tuning into recently. I've been paying attention to your committee, and I'm very aware of how your process is. And this is something that's, pretty it's chronic with you guys on and how you're treating applicants and how it just varies for people. And I don't think it should be that way. I think everybody should get a warm and fuzzy feeling. I think everybody should get that extra, okay, well, it doesn't work this way. Let's see how we can figure it out. And maybe it's funding that has nothing to do with CPA, the treatment that Candy got. I think that's what everybody should be getting.
You know, maybe that's the type of feedback you asked us. Like, what is that feedback? What does that look like? You know, what do we want to see in our appointees on the boards and how they want to act? That's a great example, and I would agree with that. I don't say you do that all the time. I've seen you work out some really amazing projects. I've seen some really amazing uses of CPA funds over the past 15 plus years. It's been an amazing program for Grafton. But I just wanted to say that, you know, taking in that feedback, I mean, like you said, does everything go perfectly fine? No, we're not perfect. You guys shouldn't expect to be perfect either. Again, our observations and the way to move forward, okay, part of this discussion here tonight is to just understand like what we're seeing, what we're feeling, you explaining that, and then us explaining things to you and addressing your feelings and concerns. And I know we're kind of wrapping up here, we've been at this, but does anyone have anything further or new that they want to say? If not, Jim Gallagher would wish to just say a few remarks if the board doesn't object.
Yes. So but where are we leaving it? It's just
We're this is the last thing, and then we'll have our discussion.
all right.
I come with good news in that I'll be the last person speaking here because I think everybody has spoken their piece and has done that. One of the things you talked about was your history of meeting with different boards. We haven't been that fortunate, and maybe something could be set up that we could have a joint meeting like that. Colleen, during that presentation, that was a debauchery, said open meeting law violation twice, and people on TV all heard it because Colleen has a microphone. We didn't hear it because we were all talking at the same time. Okay, so, you know, when nobody wants to give up to somebody else and everybody's talking, they don't hear anything. And that's wrong. That's just wrong. But I think I want to go back to the very beginning at the comments that St. Remy made is that we're acknowledging what's gone wrong. And we're of a mind that we can do better. Me more than anyone else, that the debacle on the 24th, I was the chair, and it was a 4-hour meeting, and after 3 hours, I was looking for a chair and a whip to be able to run that meeting, and that shouldn't be that way. It just shouldn't be that way. The whole thing about what we do, I think, is obviously important to us. What you're doing is absolutely important to yourselves and for the town. So I think that we draw a line in the sand and say we've been heard, and that we go back with the understanding of the things that we need to do better. And perhaps you folks, and Peter already mentioned it, is that if there's something on the agenda that involves the CPC, you're going to let us know. Can't ask for anything more than that. So I think we've had wonderful resolutions here tonight. People have had a chance to get things off their chest. And only because he's here, I want to highlight the very first article that the CPC sent forward. I was the representative, and it was for a dog park. Dave Robbins stood up and worked hard on the CPA passage and said, I always thought that this money would go to be something good, not to a bunch of dogs. So the very first article that we brought forward was defeated, and it was me that brought it forward, and I'm still living that misery, and it's Dave Robbins' fault.
Because you're a cat guy.
That's it.
That's it.
But seriously, you know, everybody respects each other here. I think that's true. I really think it's true. And if we're going to hang on every word, then we're all in trouble. All right? I ran a terrible meeting on the 24th, and I could have done better, and a lot of this would have been avoided. That was on the 24th. On the 25th, I filed to be the sole member who was responsible to have an open meeting violation. as has been mentioned. We're gonna talk about that again tomorrow night, but, it should be no surprise to anyone that after that vote is taken, I'm gonna reintroduce my, recommendation that I go forward and just fall on the sword, said we screwed up, let's just get on with our lives. So we're gonna do that too. All
That's
right?
your business. Thanks, Jim.
Thank
for
you,
sharing.
but I want to thank you for inviting us in, for listening, and I want to thank my fellow board members who are so much more eloquent than I in versing. And I'll just tell you one thing, is that whenever an article goes out, before it goes to town meeting, there is one of us on the board that is assigned to that person and to that project to help them out. A lot of the questioning that we do may sound harsh, but what we try to do is to prepare them for what will come at town meeting. All we do is put them on the stage. They're the ones that have to sell it to the town of Grafton. And sometimes we're the devil's advocate. Sometimes we do that job much too good, and it doesn't sound right. But I think everybody here has got their heart in the right place. And I think we can bring this to an end right now with an understanding that we understand each other and we will pledge to do better.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay?
Thank you. I think we've talked full circle here. I think we've heard all of the concerns. I just want to make sure, my board is set. You guys are all set. Well, it is a bit warm, and I did ask the town administrator to turn the air on.
Yeah, the air's on.
But I want to thank you all for coming in tonight.
So how are we leaving it though if we don't see a change in behavior? Would we just come back in and do this again?
I think we're going to discuss that internally here right now because it's our purview. We're the appointing authority. That's how we're going to go about that. Rich, I'm trying to wrap this up.
I know, I just want to say, could we set up like a schedule every couple of months with the board, with the CPC?
No, that's too much.
No, we'll come across that bridge. We'll
Okay.
address it with the board, and the chairs will then, trade some dates. Thank you, though.
Just a suggestion.
All right, so we had a discussion tonight. I'm just going to leave it open to the board about if it wants to move forward with any further action, or if it's heard enough tonight and it's satisfied with the responses. Who wants to go first?
I'm fine.
Fine with what, Ray? Be specific.
I'm fine. I'm fine with the meeting we had tonight, and I think both sides heard things that not that we haven't heard them before. We have. The horse is dead, and we're still whacking it with a bat.
Okay.
And I just move forward.
Anyone else?
I guess I just need to know what forward looks like because like you said, we it's nothing we haven't heard before. It's just ongoing behavior that just keeps happening. And how do we put it to bed and move forward? Just say, okay, we had a discussion and that's that. And how does the discussion look next time and next time and next time? Like what parameters are we putting in place so that,
I could probably address a couple of those things, and some of my takeaways tonight that I heard was do an above board better job with communicating, and not only with CPC, but maybe any committee that we bring up in our discussion. That should be something that the chair communicates with the other chair to let them be aware of that. And that's one takeaway that I got. And if that can be demonstrated moving forward, and I think to some of the rationale of what we heard tonight that led to, again, a set of unfortunate circumstances, I kind of feel that unless that is done and prescribed, then evaluate to see if does that absolve any of the issues. I don't know how the rest of you feel. I was addressing that one concern. Doreen, Matt, you guys are quiet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I had a little coughing fit earlier, so I'm still kind of catching my breath here. But I am happy with how the discussions went tonight. I feel like that was a good start, and we were all able to address our concerns and hear their concerns of us. And I don't think any decision has to be made, like to Ray's point. We move forward. I have questions about affordable housing and that process and how it falls into CPA and how CPC is addressing it, but those aren't discussions for tonight. That is you know, attending a meeting, asking questions, and understanding. And I think that's what we're doing tonight, and that's what we've done, is to get a general understanding of the issues. And I'm not in a position to just take any sort of action. So I guess to answer your question, Colleen, excuse me, if something were to happen where we have questions in the future, I think we do this. We have to keep lines of communication open with all boards and committees. So whether it's something that CPC is doing that we feel we have questions or concerns about, we ask. If it's another committee, we're having EDC in next week. We're making changes to their charge. We want their feedback. We want to know what's going on. They may have concerns for us. There's going to be several discussions. I mean, that's, in my opinion, how this works. I voiced my opinion of how I felt about how open meeting law was handled, and I'm done. That's it.
So I just have a question to that.
Yeah.
If we do that, how are we protecting the future applicants going before CPC that may or may not get mistreated?
Can you explain that a little more?
Where they might be, just like we discussed tonight, there were applicants who were treated differently, and how are we protecting them by leaving the broken process in place?
So, okay, so two things. Applicants, you mean applicants who are looking for CPA funds,
right?
Not applicants to the committee. Just
Correct.
to be clear.
Applicants
okay.
looking for grants.
Okay. So, I think two things. I think one, that individual needs to address it if it's coming from the town. Again, that's something that the board needs to say. We have an issue of how this is being handled. Can you explain it to us? Why is this the process?
Okay, so what we did.
That's how I would handle it.
Okay. I guess but that doesn't really protect the person that goes forward now and has to get treated like Ray got treated, or get treated like Evan got treated, or get treated like Amy got treated, or get treated like, I can keep going, right? So we have a lot of applicants who were treated in a way that we've all acknowledged wasn't how we thought would be the appropriate way to be treated. So what are we doing to prevent that so there isn't a next person?
What do you think we should do?
I don't know. That's why we're having the conversation.
I understand your question, and I think that some of us bringing up those concerns tonight address those for really the first time in an official capacity instead of, through an email or through a conversation. I think the CPC has heard us. Okay, if they haven't, and let's say this, let's say the board's observations, it continues. Then I feel that, look, it's been put on notice. Everyone's been made aware about how we're interpreting it. They explained how they went through their process and so on and so forth. So I think we've all heard how they, vet projects and the due diligence that they put in, and how that could be, perceived as being run through the ringer for a reason. I heard that explanation tonight, and I feel that, again, this is the first time our appointees are hearing that. So, I think at this point, okay, made them aware of it, Colin. Okay, and you ask, how do you prevent that from happening again? Well, part of this is the communication to those members, and then that's the first step. So the first step is this. Okay, you all heard that, and that's step one. What step two, step three is? It's going to be dependent upon how things go, either, in the immediate future, and then later on down the road. And then I think that, in my opinion, okay, that this board evaluate things as things go. And if this board decides that it's not liking or not seeing the direction, then at least this has been conveyed.
And I just want to address, my name has come up twice tonight.
Saint Ray.
Well, no, that was 3. But my name, as far as relationships with CPC, has come up twice tonight. I represent the association that filed with projects with CPC twice. Once was the Roney Bridge. The second time was Whitney Park. I have mentioned to people that we were not treated what I believe to be properly at Whitney Park. I have not brought it to CPC. I have not sent a letter of a complaint or anything like that. We withdrew our project based on how we were treated at CPC. That's old news. That's old.
But the behavior's not.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
But it
I did not bring it up. Okay? I didn't go back to their meeting and say, you know what? You guys treated us like crap, which they didn't. But they did a little. But
Wait, which
but
is it though?
there's other words that I could throw in there, but I'm not going to. I'm just saying, the Whitney Park project did not go through. It was not because of the lack of effort of the association that I represented. Not at all. I'm gonna leave it at that, because that's old news. It doesn't matter anymore. So,
Anything you want to add?
I don't have much. This is the conversation that I wanted to have, and thanks for coming in, guys. I have some lingering concerns. I do. I feel like we were heard, though, and, you know, in the spirit of professional respect and an understanding of, you know, the years of service and all of that, and the good work that CPC's done over the years, I think we just need to give it a chance to be heard, you know, and I'm not going to make this a longer meeting by going on. That's the conversation I wanted to have.
If the situation is reversed, I would hope that this board would have the same courtesy for me at that. I would. Give it a chance, and I'm gonna leave it at that as well, but, you know, again, I mean, do you have anything
I do have a recommendation.
Okay.
That the CPC send a satisfaction survey to applicants after they go through the process, so that they can hear maybe from different points of view on how they did great, how they can improve, and go forward that way.
Yeah, I don't think we can make them do that.
Nope, we can't make them do
But,
anything.
you know, if they
but-
want if you want data, you know, that's one sure way of collecting it. I think that's a recommendation that we could potentially make, and that you could have, you know, when we have that meeting with CPC, that could be something that we discuss and bring up to get some ideas, and see if there's some mutual agreement on that. Anybody else? Is there anything else?
No.
Okay. All right, so I think at this point, I think we've finished this business. I want to thank the members of CPC for coming in tonight. Thank you very much. I know it was a long night. I think this was the first step. So this is like ripping the Band-Aid off. Okay, now let's let the air get at it, and let's see where it goes from there. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, we don't have any, we will not be passing over EDC members if you've got an older version of the agenda. We have no resignations tonight. We do have two members here that were applying for the bylaw study committee. So first up, we have, let me see, we got my list, I believe, right here. We have Brian. Is Brian here with us tonight? Hi, Brian. Thank you for waiting.
I'll try to keep it brief.
All right, tell us a little bit about yourself. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So, so thank you. I just want to start by saying it's an honor to be here, to be considered for the committee, but it's also an honor to be considered alongside somebody like Mr. Robbins, whose roots in Grafton and in town government reach a lot deeper than mine currently do. As I mentioned in my letter, my family and I moved to Grafton at the beginning of 2019. And what started as an interest in trying to get up to speed on my new town has turned into an interest to try to keep a finger on the pulse of town government. This is my first attempt to join a board or committee, but I did appreciate the board's appointment last year as an election worker in town. As for pertinent skill sets, I'm a CPA by trade. Spent the first 10 years of my career at a global public accounting firm in Boston, and before moving over to the corporate side of the ledger. I'm no stranger to the kind of legalese and terms and conditions that we find throughout our bylaws, and I look to bring the type of attention to detail to the committee that I exude in my day job. I'd also look forward, if I was appointed, to working with town boards and town departments to see what input they have as some of the folks that work most directly with our bylaws on a regular basis. And that's about it, although if I can go on a little bit longer.
No.
A bit of a lighter note. After some of the discussions at last week's meeting, I feel almost compelled to mention, at least for Mr. Offen's benefit, that I spent my last 3 years out of 4 at Boston College in the marching band playing the sousaphone.
Yes!
The
All right.
tuba. I'm a little surprised that with this many former tuba players in town, we don't have more noise bylaws on the books. But in all seriousness, I threw my hat in the ring because the subject matter interests me, and I think I could do a good job. So, happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Brian from the board? No.
Have you read the bylaws?
I have all 156 pages.
Our numbers are growing.
That makes 3 people. No, I'm just kidding. Any other
Page 3.
any questions?
Nope.
I appreciate you wanting to step up. This is not something a lot of people want to come and do, but it's great seeing 2 members here tonight wanting to do this. And I appreciate you sharing your background and your due diligence and your research into the town. Thank you again for being an election worker. That's great. I know it's a thankless job, but it's really appreciated from the community here. I know it's important. Anyone else have any other? I don't have any questions.
Yeah, me neither. But this is a good opportunity for you to talk to all your friends and try to cajole one of them, 2 of them, 3 of them.
There you go.
And
But to join the band?
Yes.
Just pick up the tuba.
no, we have enough tuba players in Grafton.
Yeah.
2's the limit.
All right. Well, I don't have any other questions. Thanks, Brian, for
Yeah, no
coming in.
problem. Thank you.
So next up, we have Dave Robbins. Dave, again, I'm going to extend thank you for waiting.
Dave, I have 10 minutes left in my week and I need to fill it, Robin. Jeez.
Well, my goodness. I'll stand rather than sitting because maybe standing up will make me be less long-winded than I sometimes get. Anyway, I mean, I know you all know who I am. We've all worked together on various things over times, and I have worn quite a few different hats in service to this town over the last good many years. I think my first committee was in 1988 when we helped, we put the water supply protection overlay district into the zoning bylaw. I've served on a lot of other things. As Jim said, yes, I was one of the people who sold the CPA to the town back in 2001, so I was kind of part of putting that into the bylaws. And I think what I bring to the bylaw review committee is that long experience working under various different bylaws, being very familiar with how town and government has worked in the past and how things have changed. I think I bring a good, perhaps an important perspective to the review of the bylaws in having a fairly good understanding of why some of the bylaws are there, how they have evolved. And I think that's probably important to have that perspective in the bylaw review. And of course, I'm kind of a bylaw regulations geek too. I spent the last couple of years reviewing the subdivision rules and regulations for the planning board from beginning to end and finding all sorts of typographical errors. And I can be a little bit nitpicky when I look at bylaws and regulations, but I think that's kind of a strength because, and I don't anticipate quite that level of detail with the bylaws because we generally have been keeping the bylaws more up to date. Various boards and committees have their part of the bylaw. Conservation, for example, does a pretty good job of keeping the wetlands protection and stormwater bylaws up to date. Nevertheless, there are a few things in those bylaws which have kind of not been looked at recently and maybe are a little bit out of date. But again, my interest in understanding of bylaws and stuff and my background probably is going to be of some help to this committee.
All right, thank you. Anyone have any questions for Dave?
How many bylaws have you personally been involved in?
I'm not sure I could count. I mean, in the general bylaws, from the time when I was on conservation, I worked on the wetlands protection bylaw. Haven't written the bylaws from scratch for the most part. It's been more keeping them up to date or tailoring them to the interests of Grafton. The CPA bylaw was another one that I was directly involved in. Countless zoning bylaw updates over the years since I've been on the planning board, And as I said before, going back to way before I was on planning board with the water supply protection, which is part of the zoning bylaws. But yeah, if asked to count how many bylaws, I'm not sure I could answer that easily.
Any other questions? No? All right, Dave, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you for considering me.
Of course. Yep.
And also, I'd like to thank Brian for his interest. It sounds like Brian and I would probably work pretty well together with the sort of level of interest we have on bylaws and stuff like that.
I don't want this to go on any longer than necessary.
Then why are you coming up here?
I don't believe that.
If you'll indulge me. So there is some recent precedent for amending a charge, kind of on the fly. You did it with the fire search committee, and I just, as much as I talked about the valuable input that other members of the town, departments and other boards, like the planning board, would have in this process. I don't know that anybody interacts with the bylaws probably more than the town administrator, but I don't know that he needs to be a voting member of the committee.
I think it was a designee, I think, is how we wrote it.
Yeah.
Town administrator, yeah. Or
I'm more than happy to be removed.
Yeah, you're fired.
That's what I'm just, I see where you're going with that.
The original draft of the charge included 2 members at large. And while I didn't want to, give up on my position, I certainly wouldn't have any objection to Mr. Robbins taking the seat. But if there's 2 of us and the board is interested in both of us, I wanted to present the option.
All right, let us have that discussion. Thank you very much for bringing that up, Brian and Dave. Appreciate it. Evan, I'm going to put you on the hot seat tonight here. So it's you and or your designee.
Yeah.
Do you want to propose a designee tonight?
Yeah, sure.
One of the 2 applicants, if you feel that they would would do the job?
I would recommend Dave Robbins, since the other applicant kicked me off the committee.
So Dave is your designee?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bold move.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
For somebody who's not even on the committee yet. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
It's impressive.
All right, so let's do this. Let's get the select board appointee out of the way here. Does anyone have any comments or discussion? If not, I can entertain a motion.
You mean the TA designee?
Nope, we're doing the select board designee first.
I move Ray Mead be the select board designee on the bylaw review committee.
Second.
You're just doing that to get back at me.
Wait, you were putting Ray Mead on there?
I just did, yeah.
There's a motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? No? So you're putting Ray Mead on that? Okay. All right, I'll be honest, is there any interest in looking at one of the 2 applicants that came in for the bylaw?
Don't look at me.
I'm asking if there's any.
Wait,
if
what are you
anyone wants to-
asking?
I'm wondering if anyone wants to also consider, and I know you got a motion made and seconded, but not to put Ray on it, but I was curious if we look at the 2 members who came in tonight looking to be select board.
Well, then we'd need another at-large. So we definitely need to fill an at-large seat with one of these guys.
I
And
get
then
that.
one of them's gonna be the designee, and then we get a select board rep, and then we
Okay.
got Candy and who else?
Okay. Motion made.
I'll take it.
Okay, great. All right, motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Trying to take it away from you, Ray. You didn't even want it, and now you.
All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carried. Okay. This is now. We got that done. Select board appointee, please.
Didn't we just?
You just did the TA.
No,
we didn't.
No.
I said select board because you started with that.
we're gonna do
The select board. Yeah.
Yes.
Guys, look at the. That's why I was really uber confused at that. It is the select. We're talking about these 2 gentlemen who came in tonight.
I thought one of them was gonna take Evan's place and Dave was gonna take.
Well, we
Evan's
have to
place.
make an amendment to the agenda. So guess what? You're there, Ray. Okay. Do we have a motion for the at-large member that the select board is appointing for the bylaw study committee? That didn't go as I planned. That's okay.
I know. I just want to.
That's okay. It's
Okay.
okay. We're moving on.
So you're looking for the at-large now, correct?
Yes. Yes.
All right. I move that the select board appoint Brian Langevin. Sorry, I'm saying that wrong. As the member at large of the bylaw study committee.
Motion made. Motion made. Second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, declare the motion carries. Okay, any discussion about wanting to increase the charge tonight on the at-large membership on the existing committee to be more inclusive of members at large?
No, we're at 5 right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just to jog my memory, it's select board, member at large, town administrator or designee, town clerk, and who's the 5th?
I believe there was a planning board member, right?
Finance
Thank you.
committee.
Thank
Alright,
you.
perfect.
I just don't have the
And they haven't submitted
charge.
anybody yet. Okay. No, I'm comfortable with keeping it 5, and then if it ends up being heavier work, maybe they can come to us and say, hey, we need more hands, but that's just my opinion.
All right, anyone else? Wanna-
Nope, but I'm happy to move forward with the TA appointment.
Okay. All right, let's move forward. Does anyone want to make a motion for the TA appointment for bylaws review committee?
Sure, I move the board vote to appoint Dave Robbins as the town administrator designee on the bylaw study committee to begin appointment and finish all work no later than October 17th, 2023.
Second.
Motion made, second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, declare motion carried. Okay, there, we're done. Complete. We've got a full board, full committee, except for finance. But I'll have to ping the chair on that.
And Candy's been notified, obviously, correct?
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Everyone's been notified. Yep.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. Moving on. Thank you guys for coming in tonight for that. Moving on here into business. Update lip project for Providence and Upton Street. I know we have some gentlemen here tonight. We have Clay Williams, right?
Yes, correct.
Thank you for waiting patiently.
It's all part of the fun, right?
Local government at its finest.
I also have Logan Huffman with me here, the president of Eastland Partners.
Okay. Does anyone else want to sit at a table up here if they want to be heard, if they're part of the discussion?
Maybe
No.
as needed. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Go ahead.
Wonderful.
They're a little shy.
Understand.
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Clay Williams with Eastland Partners. We're here before you today to provide an update on our 2 projects for Pleasant Street and Upton Street, not Providence Road. I don't know how that got put on the agenda. But either way, since we came before you about a month ago, we further refined some of our data. We finalized our traffic studies, which were provided to you in your packets. And on Doreen's advice, we held a series of neighborhood meetings with the neighborhoods of Pleasant Street and Upton Street. Microphone.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So as I was saying, we've gathered some more data, reached out to our neighbors, heard some questions and concerns, which we memorialized in this memo that we submitted to you, basically covering all the things that were discussed at those meetings. So with that, I guess we're back here to see if you had any further questions on my previous presentation. There's no need to go through that again today. Just kind of wanted to come and see where everybody was at.
All right. Anyone on board have any questions or comments?
No, I just told your previous presentation is the bar now. That's going to be what I want from everybody going forward. So thank you for
Nice.
that.
Thank you.
I found a good one with this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else from the board have any questions about Doreen?
I just have a comment. I really appreciated, I mean, first of all, the immediate follow through of meeting with neighbors and abutters and having their voice heard, but also just how this information was collected and responded to, I think was really well done. I mean, because it created a standard for everybody to understand. It didn't go too deeply into, developer lingo, and it was very easy to read, but it was also very factual. And you provided great data to back it up. So just thank you for that. I learned a lot just by, seeing the concerns and also understanding the responses. So well done.
Thank you.
Matt?
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to the level of detail that you guys provided. I suppose a lot of the materials that we got for tonight's in tonight's packet were quite detailed. The traffic studies and the compilation of concerns that you heard and how you envision addressing them and whatnot. A lot of it felt like it will fall under the purview of ZBA,
right,
ultimately. so it was a little bit overwhelming, but I do appreciate that we had such a rich set of data to look at in evaluating this project, and obviously has been made available to the public as well. I'm gonna need a little time, I think, to kind of grok all of the information, sort of, and you know, I guess another thing that's sort of relevant to this is we're in safe harbor now, so we have to figure out as a town how we deal with these LIP proposals, because the game's changed a little bit for us, and so it's something that I've asked to put on an upcoming agenda for us to just talk about. I would like some input from ZBA. I'd like some input from kind of planning and potentially economic development. Like, there's a number of different players that I think are gonna, well, I'd like to hear from in terms of how we deal with LIPs going forward, because obviously being in safe harbor changes the process a little bit, or at least the way we think about it. So I want to make sure that we're deliberate about recognizing the new situation that we're in. So I guess that's all I'll say about that.
Okay. Ray, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay. I thought your proposal was put together very well. It answered a lot of questions that I know eventually ourselves or some other board is going to ask you.
Right.
I think there's some more, to Matt's point, I would agree that, you know, now that Grafton's in the safe harbor process, I know at our next meeting we have on our agenda, just discussing our LIP process in a little bit more detail about, after hearing from the planning and ZBA at a previous meeting a couple of weeks back, you know, we've had some time to kind of internalize this, ask questions of staff, and really kind of, you know, figure out what our role would be going forward with this. And, you know, I would agree, I would probably need, you know, some more time to just understand, like, what, you know, what would be a consideration, like, in a select board LIP ask and proposal, and what are, you know, considerate type of proposals, and things that I want to personally avoid is wasting anybody's time. You know what I mean? So I want to know more about that and moving forward. And that being a very new process for Grafton, especially in the position that we're in now, you know, we want to make sure, again, we're just doing our due diligence on this, because it starts with us at that point, at the 41A process, right? You know, what they call the friendly 41B. So, anyone else have anything else that they want to add, or do you have anything that you have questions for us at this time?
Well, if I may, a little bit, you know, it's an interesting time, and this is a new one, you know, for me. I've been involved in the 40B process for over 30 years now, and as you say, when the safe, you know, harbor process comes along, you know, this being a relatively new thing, you know, one of the things we've done, and I think, you know, you're seeing that what Clay does and what we put together is this whole process, and the LIP process is, you know, the approach is to come in and, you know, traditionally with these 40B projects, you know, it's been kind of, communities have felt that things are being shoved down the community's throat, that you have to do this and you have to do that, and what we've learned and found, and, you know, with the approach is by coming through and coming forward with the LIP process, it's, you know, our goal is to put things forward. I think as Clay has said, we've gone ahead, we've done traffic studies, we've done these things, because in effect, as you say, we don't want to waste our time either. We evaluate developments, you know, opportunities that we see, and we look at them and we ask the question, does this make sense? What's going to come out of the woodwork? Where would the problem be with this? Because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work for the community, whether it's, you know, done quickly or you spend, you know, years in litigation, it's not going to fly. So that's what we've tried to do, and we'd like the opportunity with these, because we believe that they're both good developments that can be good for the community, because we all recognize, I mean, you know, 30 years ago when I first got into this, I stood in front of a community and I, you know, stood up and said, I'm a for-profit developer, it's what I do. I build housing. And we've done it through this process, and the Commonwealth needs it. We all know that. But it's evolved such that, we don't want to fight. We want to do things that are good for housing and good for people. So I guess what I would just ask, if any way we can help, because we've been through the LIP process, that, as far as answering questions, anything like that about how it works, because at the end of the day, the big picture, I think you all know, at the Board of Selectmen level is you look at it, you evaluate it, you're not really getting down into the weeds, but you're saying, yeah, we've looked at this and we feel, one, maybe we feel this is a reputable developer. Two, maybe we feel that these are good locations that could work as long as everything is kind of, works through, that we as a community could support them. And all that says then is that gives us the opportunity to then apply to the Zoning Board of Appeals to seek a comprehensive permit. So nothing happens until all that process would be done. And I think we are seeing in a number of different communities that have reached actually the 10% threshold as mandated, that, a number of communities, primarily here in eastern Massachusetts, have all come now where they're saying, okay, but we still need the housing. So that's kind of where we are. And our approach is that day where you say, nah, we don't think this makes sense for Grafton, we're hoping that we can hear that if that's what the community feels. If not, our goal is to move forward. And while we've only developed one community in town here so far, I think that the community and different departments, they would sum up what kind of job we've done. So
I think one of my follow-up questions to that is, part of if you go through the LIP process, just if you could demonstrate for me like a location that you've done something similar in a similar plan in a similar situation. I think you might have said that. I just don't have the location.
Well, we did here in town, we did it was a 40B residential subdivision. We bought it permitted. It was 31 single-family homes. There were 8 affordable.
Yeah, I know that one, but something that's similar to this one, sir. Like I said, so these are high-density buildings.
Apartments.
These aren't, apartments.
Right.
These aren't individual single-family homes. I've seen a lot of those.
Right,
Grafton is
right.
full of those types of developments. I was just curious if you've got some.
So, way back in the day, a development that's mentioned is the Hastings Village development that I did in Wellesley. After that, a number of years later, we did a community in Medway called Woodside. And most recently, which we're just kind of on the edge of starting construction, it was our first LIP development is in Auburn, where we worked with, the town of Auburn, the Board of Selectmen, where we went through the LIP process with Auburn.
Okay. So those, just refresh my memory, that those LIP processes in Auburn, is it similar to this LIP process?
Yes.
They are, okay,
Yes.
all right. And it's in a similar situation neighborhood, or is it?
Yes.
It is, okay, all right, that's good to know. All right, any other questions from the board?
I guess I'm just wondering what our next steps are.
Well, I know next week we have, at some point, it would be fill out the LIP application, present it in front of the board, have us review it, and I think our process is we write a letter, either we're in favor of it or we're not in favor of it, and we state the reasons why. And that was made pretty evident when we had Dan Hill here.
Sure. I think we also need to have a discussion though about, there's a little bit of give and get in these LIP projects, and I think we haven't had a discussion as a board on what kind of, would we be driving additional amenities in that community? Would we be looking for sidewalks or, that sort of, an affordable housing trust donation? I don't know what that might be looking like, but that conversation needs to happen at some point.
Okay, Colleen?
The Auburn process that you guys are just about to start breaking ground on, when did the LIP discussion start roughly? Like what month with that select board?
You know better than me.
That was,
I'm getting old, I lose track of time.
yeah. Okay, so yeah, that was August.
August of 21?
No, of 19.
Okay. And what was the name of that project?
That
called
was
the reserve.
Yeah, the reserve.
The reserve? Okay. So, me personally, what I'm going to do, and you guys can do what you want, I'm going to go look up those meetings and kind of take cues from that, and then base
That'd be good.
how I want to go forward off of kind of seeing what other boards do.
Okay. Anybody else?
That would be a good idea.
Julie,
And I'd also suggest this, I think it's been thrown out in other meetings, I think the term was used, kind of wish list. One of the things that happens with, the lit process like this, and you say is, and we're kind of perplexed tonight because we really don't know what to do. There's clearly the economics that are involved in it, but, you mentioned, Matt, a number of things that, where there could be contributions to the Affordable Housing Trust. I think we mentioned, at one of the last meetings, the, kind of the thing in Auburn was, Auburn has the Auburn Water District, and they have some issues with not a lack of water in town, but they have issues. A lot of their wells are kind of close to the turnpike and all, and every time a gas tanker decides to have a wreck, they've got issues there. And we worked with, and I think really it'd say kind of carried the water to work with the city of Worcester to where we've got it set up for that development, that we're gonna make a connection to the city of Worcester, the water. It's gonna be kind of an emergency connection that we're gonna do for the city that became part of that deal. It was just something that was needed at the time. And I can tell you that in that process, kind of through what we're doing right here, it kind of spilled out, no pun intended, that that's what they needed, because we came in and we actually have on our property in Auburn, we have actually wells that are sufficient that could have supported the entire development. We ultimately looked at it and said, this would be a better thing to do, connect the town rather than, develop our own water system like that. So that's something that we kind of need some help with. That I think, as a board, we can talk to you all, and if there's any other boards or things that you could suggest of who we'd talk to around town of, kind of what is needed. And then we try to factor it in.
So, you brought up the water. So Grafton has two separate municipalities, the Grafton Water District and the South Grafton Water District. And they run their own show, but we have a good, close cooperation between the water district and the town, especially with infrastructure when they open up, all that sort of thing. My recommendation, if that's the route you want to take and, do some of your own due diligence and have those conversations, I would recommend reaching out to those commissioners and getting on their next agendas.
Okay.
That would just be
Well, it wasn't, that just, if I may, I'm sorry, it wasn't specifically, because Auburn is the same. The Auburn Water District is separate from the town as well. It's just something that the community as a whole needed.
Yeah.
And so, as I say, this, in other things we've done through the years, we built the last mile. It wasn't relating to a 40B development, but we built the last mile of the Charles River Bike Path in Milford, back when it was just, again, on something we were doing. We were doing a condominium development in Milford called Walden Woods, and, it's a whole convoluted thing, but it turned out that, the town needed it, and there was a little give and take there, and we went and as I say, built that last mile of the bike path.
Yeah.
So could be that. We've done, playgrounds and, different things through the years. So just some thoughts as far as that goes.
I think Matt had the right suggestion, and Colleen following up with, let's look at some of those other meetings. I think the board needs to, do some due diligence, and, go through its process. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions. We will be discussing it next week at the meeting. It's on our agenda. It hasn't been made public yet, but I've got the draft all set up for that discussion with this board.
Great.
If I do find any meetings, I'll send them to Evan to push out to you guys.
Yeah.
Just so you
We can
guys-
just add them to the agenda item as just exhibits if you want.
yeah, if I-
Put the links
yeah,
in there,
if
so
I
that
find
way the
it.
public can.
Yeah, Auburn's YouTube channel, ACTV Auburn, is really good about all their.
Awesome.
If you would, I mean.
I can send them.
I was gonna say, if you already have them.
Yeah, I'll send them to you. How about that?
Yeah.
Or I'll send them to Evan.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
a good
I can take
idea.
care of that. No
Okay.
Great.
All right, well, does anybody have anything else?
Peter,
Yes, sir.
did you want to take that public comment now?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
can, yeah. I'm just gonna allow public comment real quick, as long as the question is directed towards the board and not the project, because it's, again, if you want to come up, sir, and discuss that, or do you want to discuss?
I would like to
Sir,
say.
I'm sorry, sir. You need to come up and sit, or, I prefer you
Not a
sit.
problem.
Mike, thank you.
I would like to say that in the beginning, I was very nervous, and I don't think I was treated fairly, as you talked about other boards treating people fairly, okay? I'm not familiar with your process, okay? And I'd like to have an explanation. So I have to address the board with questions. And my questions concern projects that have to do with safety, okay? Whenever you do a 40B project, safety is a big issue. And if they violate safety laws, it's part of your job to make sure that they don't. Okay? The chief pointed out that Ferry Street parking because of the ball field. Well, there's a 40B project on Ferry Street also that has 36 houses, and that project has only 6 additional parking spaces. Now, I have to ask the board a question. You guys have a birthday? Do you celebrate Christmas? Do you have graduation parties? So where are all these people going to park? They park on the street, and the street becomes the hazard for these projects. So I have to ask the board, they're going to do 159 houses? Is that your understanding in the process?
Which project? They're talking about two separate ones.
Upton Street.
Upton Street.
So we haven't talked about Upton Street yet, sir. We're talking about 59 Pleasant Street.
Well, it's both.
No,
Oh.
I think it was
Okay.
both.
I thought you were talking about Upton Street as well.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, sir. Sorry.
Okay, is it 159 houses? 159 units?
152.
152. How many parking spaces? And I don't mean to talk to you. I need to talk to them.
Do you want me to?
How many parking spaces do they have?
If you could say, what is your proposed parking
Sure.
plan for this
Right.
development?
So our proposed parking is, I believe, 260 parking spaces. So
For-
we carry 1.75 spaces per
Okay.
unit.
That's better than what happened on Furry Street.
Sir, could you remind us real quick how many parking spots are on the Ferry Street 40B development?
Only 6 additional parking spaces for the number of houses.
I see, thank you.
Okay? Also, there's an issue with the town ladder truck number 1. Will it make the grade to get into that development from Upton Street?
So, sir, I'm not going to answer for the fire department. The fire department has its review process when all of these applications come through. Fire department reviews it, DPW reviews it, conservation is going to review it, a whole litany of parts. I don't want to go into their process and their details.
No, I understand that. I did a subdivision where the ladder truck could not make it off of Meadowbrook Road onto my new 2-house subdivision. After spending $16,000 to put a new driveway in, I had to spend another $20,000 to make sure the fire truck that was longer than necessary, that was built for this town, could make the access into the street. So all I'm saying is, I think that the select board needs to get the other departments involved before you make a decision on letting this project go forward. Because if you don't waste their time, you need to get those safety issues answered first.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And what was your name again, sir? I'm sorry?
My name is Robert Flynn. I live on Meadowbrook Road, and I also have a business at 127 Furry Street.
Okay. All right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that business happened to be zoned light industrial.
I know your business.
In the water overlay district, okay? The problem was the two lots next to me were also for light industrial development, which we don't have a lot in this town. And the select board, not your board, but the board prior to you, allowed those other two lots to be zoned residential, and then the 40B project came in and took away what was
I see.
deemed to be industrial a plan.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Anybody else? All right. Guys, thank you very much for coming in. You know, I'm sure there'll be more to follow up, okay, after next week. And we'll be in touch. If you send us those videos, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll send those to Evan first thing tomorrow.
I really appreciate it. Clay,
Great.
thanks for
That'll
coming
help
in.
us out.
Thank you very much for coming in.
My weekend plans.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
It's one less thing you have to research.
I know, it's just a little, that's a big help actually.
It is, I would admit.
He's
Thank you,
just
guys.
I would have done it, but
Just gonna watch.
that definitely helps.
All right, next up on our agenda, oh boy, is Mr. Belfiore still here, or did he,
He was with us via Zoom.
good, would you like to,
He's a panelist, so
Panelist.
his microphone is
Steve?
on.
We're moving on to Moving Cow.
I'm here.
I don't know how many times I can say that and get away with it.
How are you?
Good evening, Mr. Belfiore. Thank you for coming out tonight.
no
You
problem.
want to just discuss your proposal with the permit parking request that you have for your food truck?
Yep. So we're so thanks for letting me on tonight. So we're actually requesting to be able to sell tomorrow out of the Moving Cow ice cream truck up at the Grafton Common at the spot that we were at last, was it 2 weeks ago on the 70-degree weather? Only this time we're doing it in conjunction. We think it's a good idea to do it in conjunction with the Farmers Spring Market that's being held at the library tomorrow. And it's going to be up to 70 degrees. So ice cream is a good idea for that day. So we're just requesting to get the 1 day approval to be up there tomorrow. That's the first thing. And then there's another question after that. I don't know if you want me to ask both at the same time.
Why don't you go ahead and ask both at the same time?
So the other thing I was looking to is how can we, so I understand the new process and the rules for the operations and regulations for food trucks. Most of it is fine. The only thing is I couldn't find the application to fill out. So I was looking for that. The second thing is I guess I should have brought this up before, but how do we handle like warm weather pop-ups is what I'm calling them. So, you know, a food truck is kind of spontaneous sometimes. You don't always want to be in the same spot and you kind of go where the public goes. So you try to follow that trend. So I don't think it was really addressed in that because I don't know, like next week's weather, I can see it, but I'm not sure. So we do have, you know, the main focus of the Moving Cow business is we do a lot of parties. We've got some weddings booked. We do a lot of stuff with, we were just at Grafton Job Corps last week. We did 150 students there. They hired us. So we have a lot of events that we're doing, but there are days when we don't have anything going on that we'd like to kind of just pop up somewhere. So that's my second question is how do I go about asking for like blanket approvals or, you know, if 2 weeks from now is going to be 80 degrees and I'd like to see if I could open up.
Pop up anywhere or pop up in a specific spot?
It would be, well, the one spot that works well for us, and I think it works well for the town, is the Grafton Common, because there's no ice cream up there. Carol at the country store is no longer selling ice cream. We actually bought the freezer from her. So we have no conflict of interest in any of that area. We would never want to do that. So I think that spot is probably the most popular spot for us. But we could go over to Nelson Park if there was an event over there. Let's just say there was a softball game over there and we found out about it and it was going to be 80 or 75 degrees. We might ask to go over there and that's town property as well. So, but I wouldn't know that because I don't have the schedules for everything.
Yeah. So another thing I can sense that could be problematic is let's say you have a blanket approval to have a specific spot, you know, over at Nelson Park, but let's say someone's parked there. Right? Then what do? You know, I could see where this is kind of snowballing into like all these kind of conditions for that type of situation.
So Steve, it's Evan. I don't know if you can see me, but so we had met before, and kind of our conversation and meeting with you spawned this kind of discussion about how do we do this that's equitable and everything. But I think we missed the mark a little bit on what you're trying to do now.
Right.
So we are meeting. Chris and Mr. Berger and I are meeting on Thursday of this week to try to tweak what we had originally written to figure out how to do that in a way that's equitable for everybody, but still allows you the latitude that you would need, especially with you're not like a taco truck that like every Thursday night you want to be on this street or whatever it is. You're kind of more weather dependent, and so it's a little different than we had.
So what's the difference between him and like, Juniper Hills ice cream truck that drives to Grafton?
The one that doesn't stop anywhere?
Stops when he has
No,
customers.
the one you have to chase. Customers.
Yeah, it's a whole different thing under the way our.
But Steve, aren't you permitted for that already?
No, I'm not. So do they drive around in neighborhoods or
Yeah,
no?
they're
Well, that's a whole different permit from the state.
I'm
Yeah,
trying to-
I don't have that. Yeah, I don't have that permit. My permit is a peddler's license where I can do events and everything. I need approval from someone that owns the property, whether it be town owned or not. But we don't drive around in neighborhoods. We don't have a permit for that.
Right, so
we can go
what-
to parties on private property.
Yeah,
Private property.
What we had envisioned was, okay, Steve wants to be at X spot, and that be kind of quote unquote his spot for the summer, right? Or every Friday night, or whatever he plans on doing. But being a little bit more transient, for lack of a better word, we want to figure out how to give some flexibility in that so that the board still gets a look at it and knows what's going to be happening and can address any safety concerns that there would be. But otherwise, we don't want to be watching Steve, really. We want Steve to just, it's warm today, I'll show up. Oh, it's raining today, I'm not going to go out. That we didn't really articulate that well, to be quite honest with you, and we got to fix that. So.
Okay, so what's the
And
best?
Peter,
Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, sorry. Just to answer that question about the parking space. So I know in the past, and this is what I was going to suggest is with Jen from the park department, she always puts a cone in the spot early in the morning.
Okay.
So I can do that. And last time when we were there 2 weeks ago, I ended up parking my car there. It's a public spot. And then I moved my car when we brought the truck up. So there's things I can do because I am 100% for safety. And if it is, you need to be in the right spot and you got to make sure everybody around you is not going to get hit by a car and so forth.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So what's the best way, I guess, we can move forward with Steve's request here, and then while you're working on the back end to address the more broader concerns?
I think if you
Approved tomorrow.
Approved tomorrow, or anything that Steve wants to do between now and your next meeting on the 19th, that gives us time to look at this on Thursday and give you a revised thing that should solve Steve's problem and get the board what it wants as well.
I might even go a step further if I might just approve him through the 24th so that he can take full advantage of school vacation week in case we still don't have a total answer for him.
Whatever you guys want to do.
Yeah. So
We'll always ask too, Evan, I believe, I talked to Cindy and, we're going to send your office an email to let you know we will be open that day.
Okay.
Just, you guys will know when we're going to be there.
Yeah,
so
that sounds great.
Steve, if we approve tonight the 13th, 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th between 1:30 and 5, that's fine for you for now?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay. And then you'll get that sorted out. Okay. Yeah.
Yep, I've got an old one. I move the board vote to approve the request of Steve Belfiore, the Moving Cow ice cream truck, to park on the common April 13th, 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th between 1:30 and 5 p.m. as submitted.
Second. Motion made second. Any discussion on the motion?
Can we add 19th just so he can do it before our meeting that night?
I'll amend my motion to also include the 19th.
Second.
Motion. Okay, we got a motion made second to include the 19th. That's fine. It'd be great if you come down to the select board meeting and sell ice cream at 7
Oh,
p.m.
that's not how it works.
All right. Motion made second. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Declare the motion carried. Thanks, Steve, for coming in. We'll work this out. Thank you for bringing it out to our attention.
And then I don't know, is the town events on the agenda tonight or no? Because I know Jen from the Parks Department sent in all the
Yeah, they did.
events that are going on.
Yeah, Steve, they did it last week.
Okay.
So you're already covered on those ones.
Oh, sweet. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Steve.
Appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right.
The application being difficult to find, is that how we can.
I don't know.
Okay.
I will look into it. That's the
Okay.
first
Cool.
I've
Perfect.
run across
Yep.
that, so.
Awesome.
It could be an us problem too, so we'll fix it.
So next, on our meeting agenda tonight, we have the town administrator's, amended contract. Just so for the public's awareness, so, the board met in executive session after we had concluded the annual review process, Mr. Brassard. The board, I'm sorry? You said, oh, you're getting out?
I said I might be back.
Oh, okay. So, the board that night, had a discussion about, increasing, Mr. Brassard's, compensation, by, 2%, effective to go in May 1st of 2020. So the, amendment to the employment agreement covers that section. In addition, it also covers some sections to be cleaned up about dates of when and, the TA's evaluation shall occur versus before, which will be removing by April 30th to no later than February 22nd, unless the board and town administrator agree to a later date. In addition to that, the board shall establish, and amend the evaluation tool by February 23rd. So what will happen is that every time that this board utilizes that evaluation tool, it will review how effective that tool was and do they want to make any substantive changes. So therefore, the TA has an opportunity to know what tool and what criteria that the board will consider in the future for for his evaluation. And the last but not least is section C of his contract, under part 2, section C, which talks about we did an informal evaluation in his first 180 days is being stricken because that's no longer applicable. That's a summary, just so people understand that this section of his salary that goes effective if this is ratified tonight, May 1st, 2020. Mr. Brass's salary shall increase by 2% to an amount of $163,200. So that is an increase from $160,000, which was agreed upon on your entrance and coming to the town of Grafton. Does the board have any questions?
Nope.
If not, I can entertain a motion.
I make a motion, that the board vote to, approve the contract for the town administrator. That's it.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Just one quick thing. My last name is spelled incorrectly, so if that could just be fixed as well. Be great.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was on me.
Okay.
I've done that twice to you now. I'm
No,
sorry,
no problem.
Doreen. All right, with the noted change of the signature, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Declare the motion carried. And I just want to note, Mr. Mead was absent for that vote. All right,
Just want to make sure I sign your contract.
You should mark that conspicuously absent.
he did say he may return.
He may return.
May not. Okay. All right, next up, does
There
anyone have
he
any
is.
select board member reports?
Next up, adjourn? Oh, no.
Matt and I went down to the senior center and heard a lot of excellent commentary and areas that we should be looking into, and took that to heart and have some ideas that I'm working on, and I can't wait to bring back to you guys when it's more fully baked.
Okay.
Yep, it's a good meeting.
Thank you for, I could not attend. I had a last minute work event that I couldn't leave. It's been absolutely crazy at work for the past 4 months. So thank you for attending that. That was great. Anything else?
No, just, we should be doing that regularly.
Okay.
I look forward to doing it again.
Okay. All right, anyone else have any other select board member reports? Just let you know that the ARPA committee met yesterday. We have finalized the survey that is going to go out here shortly. I'm going to let the TA probably go into a little bit more detail about that, but just let you know we went through that. All right, anything else? All right, moving over to TA reports. I know we've got in here FY23 budget. Did you want to make any comments on that?
Sure, I have some other stuff too. Just keep that same format going, but I'll be brief. So for budget, we really haven't made any substantive changes, no monetary changes anyways, to the budget, and we don't have any that are contemplated to happen. I think where we are is where we're going to stay. FinCom starts their public hearing process. They have one April 20th, the 21st, and the 26th. So they'll be reviewing warrant articles and all the rest of it. So if you're interested in that, those are the times. Those are all at 7 p.m. All right.
Sometimes they're dicey like that. Is it really gonna be 7?
Yeah, I double checked it today because sometimes they start at like 6:30, and I show up 30 minutes late. So the Grafton Fire Department. So I'm just gonna give you a search committee update. So we met on last Wednesday and last Saturday. We completed all our interviews and we moved our candidates forward to the assessment center. They'll be at the assessment center on the 27th, and then you will get the scoring from that.
How many moved forward?
We moved 3 forward.
3, okay.
And then you will have the candidates in front of you for your interview process on May 4th.
Great.
And that starts at 6.
That starts at 6 p.m.
Okay. Okay. All right.
We're gonna have to go get burritos early.
Okay. Share.
I'll get everybody burritos, sure.
Right.
I guess.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Do you have anything else?
Nope. I have another slide. Sorry.
Go for it.
Various other updates. ARPA committee met yesterday. As Peter said, we went over the survey tool. I think it was a very productive meeting. So that collector is going to be open for a minimum of 30 days, probably closer to 60 days. We're going to hold 2 outreach meetings, the first of which is during the open period, because that we think will generate people to do the actual survey, and the second one will be after the close, where we kind of collect any other data that we're looking for. And I think that the survey is going to be really a real plus to the process, as we've carved out the different questions to put things kind of into buckets so that we can look at general projects and move those forward. So I think that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to that. And yeah. All right. Well, I was going to mention the senior center meeting as well. I think you guys covered it just fine. I had a great time. People brought me around and showed me different things, even though it's in our building that I've never seen before. And brought some concerns to our attention. Some are able to be fixed in the immediate term, which is great. We'll check those off the list as quickly as possible. And some are probably more long-term project needs that we need to address. But it was great. Everybody was nice. I had a good time. Everybody, even if they were a little bit stern, came up to me afterwards and said, "I'm sorry for being stern." And I thought it was great. There was some really good advocacy there, and that was it was really nice. I met with the Health Alliance this week, and so we're working on some new projects now that we're moving into hopefully a reduced COVID environment that will allow us to do kind of more work around substance abuse, mental health, community outreach tools, things like that. So there's some really, I think, going to be some cool things coming down the pike from that group. We started this week forecasting with our consultant, and then we are also doing forecasting with the school's consultant. We're going to do them in conjunction so that we have more than one data set to kind of work from. So that's pretty exciting. I think Mary meets with the forecaster, our consultant, tomorrow morning at 11. So that'll be fun. I met with the IT committee. We started working on, and I actually owe them a couple of deliverables, but we started working on looking at the next RFP that we need to put out, and the committee's going to help give input into what we're looking for exactly for services, and they have a much broader depth of IT lingo than I do, so that'll be helpful. And then health insurance, this was one of the variables that's in the budget. We are working on a strategy that will get us from hopefully 8% down to a 5.75% increase. However, I think that the 5.75 increase will be realized mostly by the employees and the retirees, because we're going to wind up picking up a delta of what we do here is that if you pay over the deductible of a certain amount, the town picks up the delta, and we're probably going to have to expand that delta a little bit to get it to where it needs to be. But we're making good progress, and I think that within the next 2 weeks we'll probably have a tentative agreement on that, and we'll be able to re-sign with our current vendor probably, and then we're going to start then we're gonna start looking at kind of the more broad picture over the next year. So that's good. I think that was it.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
William, I sent you the corrected spelling for Doreen's last name. Could you be a good man and please print those and bring them here so we can sign that tonight?
Yes, how many copies would you like?
I need 3 for wet signatures, thank you.
Okay.
Any questions for Evan?
No, thank you.
I love the format. Very nicely done.
Thank you.
I do like your presentation.
Thanks. Stole it from J Comics.
I'm sure he'll.
I went to one of those meetings and I was like, oh man, I am behind the curve.
Yeah, now you're not going to be able to fit in a room with him. His head's going to be.
I know. I know. I'm working on it. I need to stay out of my office. No, I'm just kidding.
All right. Any review of correspondence tonight? All right. No going. So up here, discussion is it's actually select board appointments. Not to browbeat this one. I know we've kind of covered some of the concerns earlier, but I know we wanted to bring this up. I believe, Colleen, you wanted some points that you wanted to.
No, I think we just wanted to talk about maybe looking at the policy and if there was any more final tweaks we wanted to make. Like tonight was a great example when we had the appointments, both of the candidates were here, and I know for me personally going forward, I think candidates should always be here. I don't think we should just appoint anyone without having a conversation either on Zoom or in person with them. And I didn't know how the committee felt about that and what that language would look like tweaking the policy.
Any comments?
I think the way we did it last year was fine.
No, not just the annual appointments, just all of
Oh, all-
appointments in general.
I
you
would
know.
think that if you have an interest in a committee and being on a committee or being appointed by the board, that you should be here.
Agreed.
That you should just not send in a resume or a letter saying, yes, I'd like to be on, that you should make the effort and be here. And whether you get asked a question or you don't get asked a question, you're here.
Okay. And what does that look like? Does the board possibly offer, 2 dates? Like, oh, I can't make it that day,
If somebody can't make it, if somebody's organized enough, not like me, if they're organized enough and they can't make it, they will send you a note and say, I can't make it that day, I can make it, this day.
Right.
And we can adjust our stuff, based on that.
And that would be the chair's discretion too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the chair, if they
Alright.
received a notification saying someone can't make it and that's the wrong date, proposing another date, I don't think is the end of the world.
Yeah, that's not.
Particularly if there's no questions or, we know the person really well, like, Dave Robbins is a great example of that,
Who's he?
But I
guy
could see
sitting
that
in the corner over
becoming political with a different type of board, right? Where it's
Sure
like,
enough,
oh, well,
yeah.
we gave them a date, they didn't come.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
I think you to Ray's point, put the date out there. If you get no response, if they don't confirm, I think you move forward with it. If they don't show up, then the board takes its actions and what it wants to do. But
Right, and it's like any appointment. A motion can be made to appoint somebody, if they're not here and it gets voted down, or it gets approved, it's the will of the board at that point. So, that's how you do appointments.
So can we see, Evan, maybe some language reflecting this conversation and we can vote on it next week?
Sure.
Thank you.
That would at least notify the applicants that their presence is strongly desired.
Yep. We can add language into
Thanks,
the,
William.
Do you have 3 copy
application as well. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please turn it off.
Yeah,
Oh, turn it off.
Any other questions or comments on that?
I have one. So is this discussion also about, and I know you guys covered this a little bit last week, but is it also pertaining to the annual appointments as well, or just?
I view it that way, yes.
Okay. So, based on, conversations we had tonight with CPC too, and I'm not even going to be part of this process, but I think it's something that the board as a whole should discuss is, the rationale for appointments is up to the select board, right? And so what kind of input do you all want to give to committee chairs or receive input from other committee members in making the decision. And if you're doing that, are you doing that throughout the year or only at that annual appointment time? I just think that communicating that one way or the other, whatever the decision is, will be important to do. In particular, based on the discussion we have tonight, you know, we have a role too of making sure we're communicating out to boards and committees, whatever the decision is. I mean, personally, I think if there's questions, board members can ask up front. I don't necessarily think it's works very well to have input of the committee the night you're making appointments necessarily, but again, I'm not going to be part of the process. I just think it's a conversation to be had.
So we did kind of touch on that last week and how it is different throughout the year versus the annual appointment. And my takeaway was that, you know, we weren't going to be really seeking input because we don't throughout the rest of the year. And I don't know if it's really helpful to put the committees in a position where they have to campaign one way or another for anybody. And quite honestly, we just recently had an experience where input wasn't what we thought it was. And
Right.
I'm burned by that still. So, yeah, I'm okay with making an appointment based off the conversation I have with the candidate and the candidate alone.
Yeah, I agree with that. And there's nothing that, in the way of input, that could come from the committee that couldn't be clearly articulated by an applicant.
Yeah.
And that's sort of my basic stance to the whole thing is, you know, if you have a special skill set, experience, special place on the committee, if there's going to be an impact to the committee's operations, if you don't get reappointed or whatever, those are all things that just need to be articulated by the applicant, and that's the process.
So I guess, William, since you're gonna be kind of tweaking this policy already, in the annual appointment process, maybe make sure that there's some kind of language reflecting that, you know, input from committees, and I don't know how you wanna word it, but we won't be seeking that. The candidates can represent themselves.
That's in the annual reappointment, you said?
I think it's for both, but since it's kind of separated in the policy, I don't know if it needs to be spelled out, because it seems like it only is a concern for the annual for the committees, but I think it's overarching for all of the appointments.
Yeah, I would agree.
And then the other thing that was brought up tonight, which again, I think should be reiterated, is the rationale for appointments too. So instead of just voting on it, you know, some sort of discussion, yeah.
I think everyone totally agrees on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay. Anything else? We'll bring that back when it's ready, next week, maybe. When Evan and William,
But you're gonna try to get by.
put that up. Okay, great.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you.
All right. If there is anything else, I promise we will have meeting minutes next week.
Yes.
Oh, we're good. I made that promise.
Yes.
I know I
No.
made the promise this week. I know you were all upset, and
I am devastated
you should be, because it's, you know, it is
because
10
I
seconds.
really wanted meeting minutes tonight.
I know.
I know.
You know,
We have no reason to go into executive session tonight, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.